Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Great Xia Kingdom, Hejiang City, Gwangaming District. The atmosphere in the office of the Senior 3 Academic Affairs Director at Gwangaming No. 1 High School was unusually oppressive. Director Huang, you can't treat Lin Lei like this. He's a senior this year. If you expel him now, he won't even be able to participate in the martial arts examination, or even get a qualified martial arts certificate. What will become of his future? A tall female teacher stood there, her eyebrows furrowed, her face filled with anger. She was Liu Lan, the homeroom teacher of Class 30 at Gwangaming No. 1 High School. Across from her, a bald, round-figured man with a lewd smile smacked his lips, his eyes scanning him up and down. Who else could it be but Huang Weizhen, the notorious Senior 3 Academic Affairs Director of the entire high school, as a synonym for organized crime within the student community? Last year, Huang Weizhen forcefully expelled 3 students who offended him, and despite the pressure of hundreds of complaints, he was still elected the most popular teacher in Gwangaming District. If there weren't some inside stories, probably no one would believe it. As for the person involved, Lin Lei gritted his teeth, his face filled with tension and resentment. Unable to obtain the quasi-martial artist certificate, he naturally knew what it meant. It meant that he would almost certainly never be able to cross social classes in his lifetime. Because in this world where martial arts are paramount, being a quasi-martial artist is practically the entry standard for all professions. Damn it, if I'm not even a quasi-martial artist, then what was the point of my transmigration? Lin Lei was naturally unwilling to accept this. He had been in this world for 18 years, and although he came from an ordinary family, with his parents' support, he resolutely embarked on the path of martial arts. But he never expected. My luck is so bad. Both of us started practicing martial arts at age 8, but by his senior year of high school, his chi and blood points had reached 50, the so-called near-martial artist level. As long as he diligently cultivated in university and reached 100 chi and blood points, he could be certified as a first-level martial artist at a martial arts school. But Lin Lei, after 10 years, still only had a pitiful 15 chi and blood points. Some physically strong junior high school students were stronger than him. If it weren't for his outstanding academic performance, he probably wouldn't have even been able to attend high school. The old principal of Gwangaming No. 1 High School, upholding the spirit of education for all, accepted Lin Lei. However, with the old principal's retirement, Lin Lei's situation plummeted. Not only were his chi and blood pills withheld, but now he was even ordered to withdraw from school by the Dean of Academic Affairs, Huang Weizhen. Class teacher Liu Lan disapproved of the other party's behavior, which is why she brought Lin Lei here to demand an explanation. Hey teacher Liu, don't say that. Huang Weizhen sneered, his gaze sweeping from Liu Lan to Lin Lei. With his current condition, even if he cultivates for another 10 years or even 100 years, he'll never break through to the quasi-martial artist level. Our Gwangaming No. 1 High School is dedicated to cultivating elites, not wasting resources on students with no future. Besides, the new principal has been focusing on college entrance exam pass rates since he arrived, so as the director of academic affairs, I can't make things too awkward. In that case, I understand teacher Liu's feelings. 10,000 yuan as compensation, and will let this matter drop. With that, Huang Weizhen took a check from his pocket and threw it directly onto the table. In his view, if Liu Lan hadn't stood up for him, he could have fired Lin Lei without spending a single penny. What trouble could a piece of trash who wasn't even a quasi-martial artist cause? However, Liu Lan was stunned by what she saw. Her face, which had initially shown some surprise, was now filled with anger. Director Huang, what did you say? 10,000 yuan to let this matter drop. The application fee for the quasi-martial artist assessment is 5,000 yuan. What is Lin Lei supposed to do? I disagree. Liu Lan bit her red lips, feeling a sense of dizziness. Since the old principal left, the entire school had become incredibly snobbish. in the chaotic world nearly 150 years ago when the abyss descended. The original purpose of establishing Guangaming No. 1 middle school was to help those boys and girls who were unable to cultivate. But now, it all seems so ridiculous. This is the school's decision, and Teacher Liu hopes you can respect it. Seeing that he couldn't easily resolve the situation, Huang Weijun narrowed his eyes, his tone becoming unfriendly. He was already a peak second-tier martial artist, and his imposing aura immediately put pressure on Liu Lan, who had just entered the second tier. But thinking of Lin Lei standing behind her, Liu Lan didn't want to back down. This matter. Teacher, let's go. Just as Liu Lan was about to speak, Lin Lei suddenly spoke up. Interrupted by him, both second-tier martial artists immediately restrained their auras. For Huang Weijun, expelling a student was simply expelling them. With his background, he could easily suppress the situation, but if he injured a student, he feared he would struggle to continue working in the education industry. Liu Lan looked at Lin Lei with a puzzled expression, as if asking, "We are ready to fight to the death. Why does your majesty surrender first?" Under their questioning gazes, Lin Lei walked to the table and accepted the 10,000 yuan. Looking at the meager sum, Lin Lei was unwilling, but he knew he absolutely could not implicate Liu Lan in this matter. He feigned nonchalance, smiling as he said, 10,000 yuan is equivalent to 3 months' salary for my father. Teacher Liu, let's go. He put the money away and looked at Liu Lan. Seeing this, Liu Lan remained silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded and followed Lin Lei out of the office. Seeing the two disappear, Huang Weijun's face showed a triumphant look. He sat in his chair, muttering to himself. Lin Lei still has 20 qi and blood pills with me. Expelling him won't be noticed. I'll secretly take them back later. My son will definitely shine in the big exam in half a month. Lin Lei and Liu Lan walked out of the office, remaining silent for a long time. When they arrived at the school gate, Liu Lan finally couldn't help but speak. Lin Lei, live well, don't give up on yourself. This is a token of the teacher's goodwill, please accept it. As she spoke, Liu Lan placed a stack of money in Lin Lei's hand. Judging from its weight, it should be around 20,000 yuan. Even for Liu Lan, who taught at Guangaming No. 1 middle school, this was 4 months' salary. Although the money was important, seeing Lin Lei's weakened state, she still felt pity. The money in his hand was light, but Lin Lei felt a heavy weight on it. He was about to refuse when he realized Liu Lan had vanished. As a second-tier martial artist, it was incredibly easy for her to leave silently. Seeing this, Lin Lei's face showed helplessness. Teacher Liu Lan, thank you. He didn't make any empty promises about repaying her later. If he became successful, he would naturally remember his teacher. If not, he should first think about how to survive. Walking home, Lin Lei still didn't know how to tell his parents about this. 18 years had passed. Although he knew his qi and blood hadn't improved, his parents still supported his dream. Perhaps it's time to accept my fate. Thinking of his father's rough hands and his mother's wrinkles, Lin Lei exhaled a breath of stale air. But at that moment, a voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Middle-aged counterattack system activated. You, Lin Lei, were originally a transmigrator with a grand dream, but you discovered you couldn't cultivate, so you gave up on yourself and remained at 38 years old. Now your parents are old, and you can't even guarantee your most basic living. Rest assured, this system will allow you to achieve a middle-aged counterattack and become the world's top martial artist. Hearing the voice in his mind, Lin Lei was utterly astonished. A midlife comeback? He was only 18. However, the system ignored him and instead issued its first task. Upon seeing the suddenly appearing system, Lin Lei was initially stunned, but then his eyes lit up with surprise and joy. 18 years. I've waited 18 years. Finally, the system has arrived. Although I don't know why it's a middle-aged reversal system, it's better than nothing. Lin Lei was incredibly excited at this moment. The opportunity to defy fate was within reach, and even deep breaths couldn't calm him down. But I've dropped out of school now. What should I do? He frowned, starting to think about how to make his parents happy. Forget it, I'll just lie. As long as I can obtain the body of a born demon god, this is nothing. After thinking for a long time, Lin Lei decided to lie to make his parents happy. I'll get my hands on the demon's body first. Thinking this, he quickly headed home, Passing through the stench-filled hallway, he took a deep breath and turned the lock. Squeak tilde. With the sound of the old iron door, Lin Lei entered the room. He saw his parents sitting at the table. His mother, Chen Fang, held a bandage, while his father, Lin Jian, had one arm in a sling, with bright red blood still visible. "Ah, son, why are you back?" His father's face showed a mixture of excitement and surprise. His mother quickly put away the bandage, a smile spreading across her face. "Aren't you a boarding student? Why did you suddenly come home today?" Looking at his parents' expressions, Lin Lei felt a pang of sadness. Just as he was about to ask what was wrong, a notification suddenly appeared in his mind. Mission completed. Your sudden return home brings joy to your aging parents. Reward received: innate demon god body. Innate demon god blood and chi are like the sea. Even breathing enhances your strength and gradually builds resistance to all attacks. Upon hearing the notification, Lin Lei felt as if his body was out of his control. His blood and chi began to surge, as if about to burst forth, but were restrained by a strange force, which began to strengthen his physical body. "Son, it's all right. You were just hit by something. You'll be fine in a few days. Here, this is the chi and blood pill you wanted. I bought it from the Martial Arts Association. It has absolutely no side effects." Seeing Lin Lei standing there in a daze, his father, ignoring his own injuries, smiled and walked over to him with a bottle of pills. Looking at the bottle of chi and blood pills, Lin Lei's nose suddenly stung with tears. The chi and blood pills produced by the Martial Arts Association were not only several times more effective, but also improved physical constitution, but their price was almost twice that of pharmacies outside. This bottle of pills was probably bought by his parents after saving every penny for a month. "Dad, thank you." Clutching the pills, though he had 1,000 words in his heart, he could only utter "thank you" at this moment. However, Lin Jian seemed to have encountered the happiest thing in the world and burst into laughter. "Go and rest for a while. Honey, cook." "All right." Seeing Lin Lei like this, his mother, Chen Fang, forced a smile. The two then went into the kitchen to clean up the leftover food and started washing vegetables again. Lin Lei sat on the sofa. Although his father said the wound wasn't serious, he felt uneasy. The body of a demon god. I must become stronger. He clenched his fists, his eyes filled with determination. In the martial arts world, strength is paramount. Only by becoming stronger can he change his situation. Lin Lei sat quietly, but his every breath seemed to carry a strange rhythm, as the true energy of heaven and earth continuously flowed into his body, strengthening his blood and tempering his flesh. For Lin Lei, who hadn't even reached the level of a quasi-martial artist, this improvement was almost a leap forward. In just half an hour, he felt his internal energy and blood volume at least triple, and his muscles began to become stronger and more powerful, filling out his already somewhat loose clothes. "Come eat." Soon, the food was served, and the three of them sat down around the table. Looking at the table full of meat and fish, Lin Lei knew his parents couldn't afford to eat so well. They probably prepared it especially for him since he was back, but now wasn't the time for sentimentality. Only by becoming stronger could he live up to his parents' expectations. Next, he had to contact other schools to participate in the martial arts grand examination. Otherwise, without even the most basic quasi-martial arts certificate, he would waste another year in high school. Just then, he suddenly heard a noise outside the door, followed by the pleading of an elderly neighbor and the crying of a child. "Brother Long, please give us a few more days. The rent has been going up for the past 2 months. We really can't afford it." "Can't afford it? If you can't afford it, then don't stay. I'm giving you a place to stay, and you think I'm doing you a favor. Without me, what about the security around here? Who will protect you old geezers who can't even go to work? Hurry up and pay 3 months' rent, or I'll throw you out today." "Brother Long, we really can't afford it anymore. The kids still need to eat. Please give us a few more days until the kids' father." "Old geezers, you don't know what's good for you. Go in and search." Soon, the sounds of smashing and looting came from outside, carrying far through the quiet slum. And upon hearing the name, Brother Long, a hint of worry appeared on Lin Jian's face, but Lin Lei didn't show it. However, he didn't notice that Lin Lei's expression was deep, as if he had already sensed something. This was a slum area. Both the Martial Arts Association and the government had forcibly set rents, but this brother Long could raise prices at will, so he probably had someone backing him up. Soon, the noise subsided, but Lin Lei heard footsteps stop outside his door. Thump! Without any politeness, the dilapidated iron gate was ripped down, revealing the faces of the people outside. "Oh, everyone's here. Old man Lin, pay up. Don't say you don't have money this time. I know your hand was broken. Surely you have some compensation. 3 months' rent if you can't pay, humph." The leader, a young man with a dragon tattoo on his hand, glanced at it, his tone utterly disdainful. Then his gaze seemed to catch something, and a look of delight appeared on his face. "The Martial Arts Association's chi and blood pill. I'll take this, it'll be half a month's rent for you." Brother Long held the chi and blood pill in his hand, showing no intention of asking anyone else. Seeing this, Lin Jan, the father, was anxious but had no choice but to lower his head. He bent down and offered him a cigarette, forcing a smile. "Brother Long, you know our family's situation. The martial arts examination is in half a month. My son will definitely pass. Can he use this pill first? After the exam, I'll have him give you something as a token of my respect." Lin Jan lit a torch in his hand, preparing to deliver it. However, upon hearing this, Brother Long glanced at Lin Lei inside the room and then coldly snorted. "Him? He's practiced for 10 years and isn't even a quasi-martial artist. You think he can pass the martial artist exam? Haha, what a joke. Old man Lin, your son is a piece of trash. Don't even mention the martial artist exam. He'll never even become a quasi-martial artist in his entire life. Today, I only want money." Brother Long slapped Lin Jan's hand away and then pushed him against the wall. "Go in and search." The words fell as he finished speaking. Several henchmen behind him prepared to break into the house. However, seeing this scene, an unquenchable rage ignited within Lin Lei. His demonic body had mobilized all his blood and energy, clouding his judgment. Lin Lei was now a beast devoid of reason. He slowly stood up, picked up his school bag, and then shook it, a wad of cash falling to the ground. "You be ********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Lin Lei's cold voice echoed in the room. Looking at the pile of money, a glint flashed in Long Ji's eyes. HMPH, so rich, still pretending to be poor. 6 months' rent, I'll take it first. Long Ji snorted coldly, then walked directly to Lin Lei. Kid, for the sake of the money, I won't argue with you. If you dare speak loudly to me again, your family can get out of here. He glanced at Lin Lei, his tone disdainful, then reached for the money. Lin Lei just watched, but the system's voice sounded in his mind. Task issued. A little test of skill. Remember Brother Long from the slums? He's used violence to collect rent and amass wealth, eventually reaching the first rank of martial artist. Today, you encountered him and not only mocked, but also insulted your parents. Now, kill him. Mission reward. Select one heavenly divine weapon. Heavenly divine weapon. A divine artifact forged in the abyss over countless years, the most powerful weapon in the world. Once it recognizes its master, it is bound to them through life and death and cannot be taken away. Lin Lei frowned upon seeing the system mission. The system's reward was excellent, but he hadn't expected Brother Tiger to have broken through to the first rank of martial artist. This guy is almost 30 years old now. Although his blood and energy are still vigorous, he has no potential for further advancement. Without a large amount of money to buy elixirs, he won't be able to break through to the first rank of martial artist in the future. That's completely impossible. It seems he must have forcibly collected a lot of money later. Damn trash, you've sucked the blood and sweat of so many people. Instantly, Lin Lei trembled uncontrollably. Because among the money taken was definitely his parents' hard-earned money from many years. They've been frugal their whole lives, and it all went to that worm, Brother Long. Brother Long seemed to sense something was wrong. He looked up and saw Lin Lei staring at him with bloodshot eyes. Hey, this kid dares to get angry. If you have the guts, then. He sneered, but before he could finish his mocking words, Lin Lei had already moved. He clenched his right hand. A fist, like a thunderclap, slammed directly into Brother Long's stomach. Brother Long, who had been mocking her, instantly arched her back like a cooked shrimp, then flew backward like a spring. Boom. To everyone's astonishment, Brother Long smashed a large crater in the old wall, embedding herself completely. Lin Lei, his eyes filled with rage, slowly walked towards his opponent. Brother Long's henchman hadn't even reacted yet, standing there dumbfounded, completely unaware of what was happening. "Stop! Stop! My brother is at the peak of the first rank. If you dare touch me, he won't let you get away with it." Seeing a blurry figure standing before him, Brother Long felt a surge of panic and terror. He wasn't regretting raising the rent, he knew he was going to die. Hearing his words, Lin Lei's gaze turned icy. He glanced at the chi and blood pill lying on the ground, then picked it up and played with it. "Oh, a first-tier martial artist, am I not?" Lin Lei sneered. His fist suddenly swung, leaving an afterimage in the air, followed by a sonic boom after the afterimage disappeared. The mark of a first-tier martial artist. A fist as fast as lightning, a sonic boom like thunder. Seeing this, the previously dying Brother Long's eyes widened. Wasn't this Lin Lei a piece of trash who wasn't even a quasi-martial artist? When did he break through to a first-tier martial artist? You know, since the Abyss invasion began, all nations granted martial artists absolute privileges. Although martial artists are restricted from killing at will, who is Brother Long? Forcibly raising the rent already violated the rules, and now he's offended a first-tier martial artist. He deserves to die. No, you can't kill him. He struggled, trying to beg for mercy, but Lin Lei wouldn't give him the chance. A fist flashed, and Lin Lei directly shattered Brother Long's dantian. The powerful surge of chi and blood further ruptured Brother Long's meridians. The fist disappeared. Brother Long was already lifeless, only his open eyes filled with deep terror. At this moment, the entire room fell into dead silence. No one could believe that Lin Lei had not only broken through to the first-tier martial artist level, but had even killed someone, even his parents, who knew Lin Lei best. At this moment, his mouth was agape, wide enough to fit his fist, completely stunned by the scene before him. Just then, hurried footsteps broke the silence. Judging from the direction of the sound, it seemed to be heading towards Lin Lei's house. You killed Brother Long. You demon. Quick, report this to the Martial Arts Association. Martial artists are attacking civilians." The henchmen seemed to realize what had happened, their faces filled with horror. They were now terrified, not even realizing that if the Martial Arts Association investigated, Brother Long would be the main culprit, and they would be accomplices to be punished. Lin Lei, hearing this, looked disdainful, but his parents were already panicking. "Quick, son, pack your things and hide." I killed him." Father Lin Zhan stood up shakily, hurriedly trying to get Lin Lei to run away, while Mother Chen Fang also came to her senses and quickly prepared to pack Lin Lei's clothes. They didn't know why Lin Lei had suddenly become so powerful, but they knew that murder was absolutely intolerable to the Martial Arts Association, so their first thought was to have him take the blame. Seeing their actions, Lin Lei couldn't help but chuckle, and the system panel appeared before his eyes. "Mission completed. You actually defeated a first-tier martial artist. Everyone was shocked by your strength. Reward received, select a heavenly divine weapon. Claim it now." "No, store it for me first." Lin Lei shook his head. He needed to explain things to his parents first, so he couldn't immediately receive the heavenly weapon. Just then, a figure appeared in the doorway, blocking out all the sunlight. Everyone looked up and saw a robust, white-haired old man standing there, his eyes filled with confusion. Principal Zhang. Seeing the white-haired old man, Lin Lei's eyes widened instantly. This man was the retired principal, but no one knew why he was in their house. You see, although the old principal was old and frail, his strength was still that of a second-tier martial artist, even stronger than the Dean of Studies, Huang Weizhen. His sudden appearance not only terrified the gang of Brother Long's henchmen, but even Lin Lei's parents were extremely frightened. They assumed it was someone from the Martial Arts Association, ready to take Lin Lei away. However, Lin Lei's shout calmed them down. Although backlit, a closer look revealed a striking resemblance to Principal Zhang, the man who had admitted Lin Lei to the high school years ago. Hearing this, Principal Zhang looked at Lin Lei, then noticed the lifeless Long Ji, and could only say, "Lin Lei, tell me what happened. Lin Lei, tell me what happened." Principal Zhang, a man of many experiences, quickly regained his composure even after witnessing such a scene. Hearing this, Lin Lei took a deep breath and, gathering his thoughts, recounted the entire incident. After a long while, Principal Zhang, having understood the whole story, exhaled, his eyes filled with rage. His gaze swept over the henchmen of Brother Long, his eyes flashing with terrifying killing intent. However, since Lin Lei's parents were present, he didn't attack, but instead offered words of comfort. "You must be Lin Lei's parents. Don't worry about this. I'll report it to the Martial Arts Association. New martial artists will arrive tomorrow to maintain order, and the government will subsidize the rent. As for these people, I'll take them away later, if there are no unforeseen circumstances. The Martial Arts Association shouldn't mind having a little more free labor." With that, he moved swiftly, and the several underlings who were about to resist instantly collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Hearing this, Lin Zhan and his wife beamed with joy, but then looked worried and said, "Principal Zhang, but Lin Lei, he." Mother Chen Fang pointed to the dead Brother Long, her eyes still filled with lingering fear. If Lin Lei had also been taken away by the association, they would rather move away and never come back. "It's all right, you're in the right. Lin Lei won't be punished. However, there are some things I still need to remind you of. Come with me." Principal Zhang squinted and offered a comforting remark, then walked out of the room. Seeing this, Lin Lei wanted to comfort his mother, but his father waved him away, urging him to hurry up, so he could only follow Principal Zhang outside first. He already knew what the other party was going to ask and had already prepared a reason in his mind. The two went downstairs to a secluded abandoned factory. Principal Zhang then turned around, squinting at Lin Lei. "That guy isn't weak. He should be a quasi-martial artist. I remember last semester your chi and blood test only showed 15 points. How did you manage that?" He stared intently at Lin Lei, his entire demeanor extremely serious. Normally, it's difficult for someone to increase their chi and blood so much in a short time, especially for a kid like Lin Lei who lacks talent and doesn't have top-tier cultivation techniques. Therefore, Principal Zhang was very worried that Lin Lei had taken some kind of forbidden substance to quickly increase his strength. If that were the case, then he could only personally send Lin Lei to the Martial Arts Association for investigation. However, Lin Lei wasn't nervous upon hearing this. His voice was calm instead. "Principal, this should be considered a latent burst of energy. That guy bullied my family, and I felt a surge of energy in my dantian opening up my meridians, so Some professional teachers certainly wouldn't believe such an explanation. But Principal Zhang had personally experienced the abyss 100 years ago. He had seen countless people break through at the brink of death, so upon hearing this, he couldn't help but nod. "Your situation usually only happens on the battlefield, but today's situation is special. Breaking through to the quasi-martial artist level is a stroke of luck for you. Never mind, as long as I didn't use any prohibited items." Principal Zhang breathed a sigh of relief. His previously serious expression gradually relaxed. "I heard that Huang Weijun expelled you. That's ridiculous. But don't worry, I'll handle things properly with Teacher Liu Lan. This is my letter of recommendation. Go to No. 1 Middle School tomorrow to retrieve your file, then report to number 13 Middle School. The principal there, Qin Ming, is a former student of mine. He's trustworthy. It doesn't matter if the school is a bit less prestigious. As long as I can get the quasi-martial artist certificate, I can still study at a martial arts university in the future." Hearing Principal Zhang's words, Lin Lei finally understood why the other party had arrived so quickly. It turned out that his homeroom teacher, Liu Lan, had informed him of the matter. The principal's swift response, not only arranging for Teacher Liu Lan, but also paving the way for him, warmed Lin Lei's heart. However, although he wanted to explain that he was now a first-level martial artist, he ultimately refrained from speaking. After all, the matter of the demon god's body was extremely important. Even if Principal Zhang was trustworthy, he couldn't casually reveal it, especially since it concerned the system. He couldn't even tell his parents. He pinched his nose and then accepted the letter of recommendation handed to him. In Hejiang City, number 13 Middle School was absolutely synonymous with a trash school. If number 1 and number 2 middle schools recruited elite students and a few impoverished students like Lin Lei, then almost anyone could get into No. 13 Middle School. Of course, compared to number 1 and number 2 middle schools, number 13 Middle School was inferior, but it wasn't without its share of talented individuals. In its 50 years of operation, 13 Middle School has produced over 10 second-tier martial artists, but compared to other schools, they are far inferior. But for Lin Lei, this is the best choice. Thank you, Principal. I will certainly live up to your and teacher Liu Lan's expectations. Lin Lei bowed deeply, maintaining the highest respect for the principal. At that moment, a system screen suddenly appeared before his eyes. Mission issued. Don't deceive the poor in middle age. By chance, you encountered the former principal of number 1 middle school. Seeing that you seemed capable of cultivation, he wrote a letter of recommendation to allow you to re-enter the school. However, you are now too old, and the school doesn't trust you. Please shock everyone on your first day of enrollment. Mission reward: Fire Dragon Body Refining Pill, Tier 1*1. Fire Dragon Body Refining Pill, Tier 1. Refined from the flesh and blood of the top-tier abyssal demon beast, the Crimson Fire Dragon. It can sublimate blood and temper bones and flesh, making your physical body invincible among Tier 1 martial artists. When Lin Lei saw the mission reward, his eyes flashed with a sharp light. Although the demon god's body was excellent, it grew slowly, with a very high potential. The Fire Dragon Body Refining Pill was different. This pill could rapidly increase his strength and help him grow quickly. Great! Lin Lei couldn't help but clap his hands in approval. For a 40-year-old like himself, it was obviously difficult to shock the people at the school, but this was a high school, and the worst-performing one at that, no. 13 Middle School. The teachers at number 13 Middle School would probably go crazy if anyone was even a prospective martial artist. If he were to display the strength of a first-level martial artist, Principal Qin Ming would probably be beaming with joy. What's so great about it? However, just as Lin Lei was overjoyed, Principal Zheng's voice suddenly rang out. In an instant, Lin Lei froze on the spot, having completely forgotten about the person beside him when he saw the mission reward. Finally I can participate in the martial arts exam. Thank you, Principal. He quickly thanked him again, trying to hide his embarrassment. Seeing him like this, Principal Zheng shook his head with a helpless smile. All right. Study hard, and don't forget this old man in the future. With that, Principal Zheng lightly touched the ground with his toes and leaped into the air, then traversed the densely packed buildings, finally disappearing from sight. Seeing this, Lin Lei was also somewhat moved. Although the principal was over 100 years old, he showed absolutely no signs of aging. Afterwards, he carefully put away the letter of recommendation and turned to go home. Tomorrow, he would completely leave number 1 high school and become a student of number 13 high school. Perhaps Principal Zheng's words reassured his parents, so Lin Lei wasn't questioned by them after returning home. The Martial Arts Association quickly arrived and cleaned up the scene. Not only were new martial artists brought in to maintain order, but the overcharged rent was also refunded. However, the only pity was that the first-tier peak martial artist behind Brother Long, his older brother Li Fenggu, was still not captured and escaped Hejiang City with a lot of belongings. What? You mean the Dean of Studies expelled you? At the hotel arranged by the Martial Arts Association, Lin Lei told his parents about his expulsion. Upon hearing the news, his mother, Chen Fang, had red eyes, not because Lin Lei disappointed her, but because she felt her son was clearly excellent, so why was he being treated this way? But you today. Father Lin Zhan didn't say much, but was curious about Lin Lei's actual strength. They all knew that Brother Long was a quasi-martial artist, and Lin Lei had killed him in one move, so his strength should be even greater. I temporarily broke through. Mom, don't worry. Principal Zhang asked me to take the martial artist exam at number 13 middle school. The principal there is his former student. And with my current strength, becoming a martial artist is a sure thing. Lin Lei took out his letter of recommendation, which finally dispelled his parents' worries. They didn't really understand the concept of becoming a martial artist, only knowing that martial artists were almost insurmountable opponents for ordinary people. As for the school for the exam, given the current situation, going to number 13 middle school was the best choice for Lin Lei. Okay, Principal Zhang will arrange it. His mother wiped away her tears and then went to sleep in separate rooms. The next morning, Lin Lei felt unusually relaxed. He sat up abruptly and discovered that his body had undergone some strange changes. Not only could he automatically attract the true energy of heaven and earth, but even his skin seemed to have darkened considerably. Could it be strengthening my physical body? Looking at his completely darkened reflection in the mirror, Lin Lei wiped himself with water. The water instantly became incredibly murky, and his fair skin appeared on his face, as if it had never been exposed to the sun. What's going on? Lin Lei's eyes widened, then, as if realizing something, he quickly took a bath. When he came out again, he found that he was completely different. His previous excess fat had all disappeared, leaving only lean muscles. His internal injuries seemed to have been healed as well, and his entire body was like that of a newborn untouched by the corrupting influence of evil. Looking at his body, Lin Lei knew that this must be the change brought about by the demonic body. He relaxed, put on his clothes, and headed straight to number 1 high school. However, he underestimated his current charm. Previously, with his ordinary appearance, he would have gone unnoticed in a crowd, but now many people on the street were taking pictures of him with their phones. Therefore, Lin Lei could only use his basic movement techniques to travel quickly. Arriving at number 1 high school, the security guard, although he didn't recognize Lin Lei, recognized Principal Zhang's notes. Therefore, after seeing the letter of recommendation, he let him through immediately. "Oh, isn't this Lin Lei, the expelled student? Why are you dressed up for school today? Are you planning to sell your body as a gigolo?" Just as he passed the martial arts arena, a disgusting voice rang out. Lin Lei looked up and saw a muscular young man standing on the arena's platform, his smile brimming with confidence in his strength. It was Huang Weijian's son, Huang Chusheng. As he finished speaking, the surrounding students all showed mocking expressions. "Lin Lei, wasn't he expelled for stealing pills?" "Ha, who knows? You don't know why this guy would steal pills if he clearly couldn't cultivate. You can't understand the thought process of this idiot, daring to make a move on school grounds. Maybe he was called in by the Martial Arts Association for questioning." The crowd's tone was mocking, completely disregarding Lin Lei. The school had already announced yesterday that Lin Lei had been expelled by the Dean of Academic Affairs for stealing school pills. If it were someone else, no one would suspect anything, since everyone knew Huang Weijian was embezzling pills. But Lin Lei was expelled, so he must have done something wrong. After all, the martial arts exam is approaching. Who knows if Lin Lei took the risk to improve his strength? Tusk Lin Lei, he's quite handsome after washing up. Maybe there really is a man who likes your type. Huang Chusheng walked up to Lin Lei, laughing loudly. Then he leaned closer and whispered, "You don't know, do you? All those pills went into my stomach. Without your qi and blood pills, my qi and blood might not have broken through 70. Having said that, Huang Chusheng straightened his back, his face full of disdain, and said, "I know you want to become stronger, but you can't be so defiant just because my dad caught you. Sai, since that's the case, just punch me. Consider it venting your anger." Seemingly afraid that Lin Lei wouldn't believe him, Huang Chusheng patted his chest heavily. He looked like a father who had suffered injustice. Seeing this, even though everyone knew that the missing pills had ended up in Huang Chusheng's mouth, they couldn't help but look at him differently. Hearing his words, Lin Lei glanced at him. Having experienced the scene of killing brother long yesterday, he could remain expressionless in the face of such provocation. But at this moment, anger was already burning in his heart. If it weren't for these guys, why would his parents be so heartbroken about his dropping out of school? He had originally planned to come back for revenge after he had achieved success, but now it seems. Can I really throw a punch? Lin Lei rubbed his hands together, looking eager to try. Seeing him like this, Huang Chusheng shook his head and laughed. Come on. I'll stand here and let you hit me. If you can break my defenses, I'll call you daddy." However, before the words were even finished, Huang Chusheng saw a strange smile appear on Lin Lei's face, and then he felt a tremendous force surge through his dantian. Everyone only saw Lin Lei's right hand transform into a blur, landing on Huang Chusheng's dantian. The latter coughed up blood and flew backward like a rag doll, collapsing into a pool of blood. Seeing this, everyone fell silent, staring dumbfounded at Huang Chusheng, who lay convulsing on the ground. Lin Lei hadn't used his full strength this time. To avoid any trouble, he even held back, ensuring his opponent would recover before the martial arts exam in half a month. As for whether it would affect his combat power, what did that have to do with him? He shrugged, feigning grievance as he looked at the crowd. Everyone, he made me hit him. I, Lin Lei, have never seen such a request in my entire life. As for acknowledging me as his father, forget it. I don't have a son who's so easily beat after consuming so many pills. Having said that, he ignored the unconscious Huang Chusheng and strode towards the teaching building, intending to find the Dean of Academic Affairs, Huang Weijun, to retrieve his academic records. I don't have a son that's so easily beaten. With that, Lin Lei left, leaving the students stunned. At that moment, the entire room was silent. No one dared to move. They all stared blankly as Lin Lei left, fearing he might turn around and attack them. Knock, knock, knock. A knock sounded on the door. Lin Lei stood outside the dean's office, desperately trying to hide his anger towards Huang Weijun. He was in this state today entirely because of this guy. Come in. Huang Weijun's calm voice came from inside. Lin Lei took a deep breath to calm himself, then pushed the door open and entered. Looking at Lin Lei as he walked in, Huang Weijun was stunned, clearly unaware of the situation. Lin Lei, you've been expelled. And who told you to wear makeup? Didn't you know it would affect the students at our school? Huang Weijun frowned as he looked at Lin Lei's drastically changed appearance, and an aura unique to a second-tier martial artist pressed down on him. Yesterday, Lin Lei would have been overwhelmed, but now, as a first-tier martial artist with the body of a demon god, he was naturally unaffected by this aura. He, Director Huang. This is Principal Zhang's letter. You can take a look. Lin Lei waved his hand dismissively, seemingly unaffected, and casually placed the letter of recommendation on the table. Seeing this, Huang Weijun frowned, not only puzzled by Lin Lei's actions, but also unsure of the old principal's letter. Opening the recommendation letter, Huang Weijun was initially surprised, but then shook his head and chuckled. Haha, number 13 middle school, you actually plan to try your luck there. Truly ignorant. You're not even a quasi-martial artist. What difference does it make which school you go to? Huang Weijun mocked, his eyes filled with disdain. In his view, Lin Lei, who couldn't see his own limitations, was truly despicable. However, now that the old principal's recommendation letter was right there, he naturally couldn't refuse. After all, the old principal had a high reputation in the entire Hejiang City education sector. Even if he wanted to target Lin Lei, his backers would probably be uneasy tomorrow. Since Principal Zhang is involved, I will naturally cooperate. Take it, and I wish you a bright future. Huang Weijun snorted coldly and transferred Lin Lei's entire file to No. 13 middle school, according to procedure. The other side was obviously also waiting for their operation, but the transfer application was approved instantly. Lin Lei was now completely separated from No. 1 middle school and became a student of number 13 middle school. Director Huang, you should care more about Huang Chusheng than me. After the transfer procedures were completed, Lin Lei turned and left, reminding Huang Weijun before leaving the office. My son's qi and blood have already exceeded 70 points. You'd better mind your own business. Watching Lin Lei leave the office, Huang Weijun's face gradually turned cold. Just as he was figuring out how to get more pills for his son, a student rushed in. Director, something terrible has happened. Huang Chusheng has been beaten up. What? Hearing that his son was in trouble, Huang Weijun was immediately shocked. Who did it? What injuries did he sustain? It was Lin Lei. He punched Huang Chusheng so hard he flew away. He's unconscious and has been taken to the infirmary. Hearing the student's words, Huang Weijun felt a sense of unreality. Lin Lei beat up Huang Chusheng? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Although he didn't know the exact situation, Huang Weijun still went to the infirmary with some skepticism. However, when he arrived at the infirmary and saw Huang Chusheng lying on the bed, his body wrapped in bandages, Huang Weijun's heart instantly ignited with rage. Lin Lei, I'll kill you. But Lin Lei, at this moment, didn't care about Huang Weijun's thoughts, because he had already arrived at No. 13 middle school. Although number 13 middle school's student body wasn't great, it was still a school funded by the government, so its size wasn't smaller than number 1 middle school. Entering the office of the senior year's academic affairs director, Lin Lei was instantly dumbfounded. Teacher Liu, what are you doing here? Looking at Liu Lan sitting in the academic affairs director's seat, he felt a little strange. No. 13 middle school doesn't have many teachers to begin with, so I had to fill in. There's no need to say more. The principal and the others are waiting for you at the martial arts arena to have your qi and blood tested. Come with me. Saying this, Liu Lan smiled and led Lin Lei to the martial arts arena. Although the current situation is somewhat complicated, Lin Lei still followed. The two arrived at the martial arts arena and quickly saw Qin Ming, the principal of No. 13 Middle School. You must be Lin Lei, my teacher already told me. Don't worry, although number 13 Middle School isn't a top school, we will never give up on any student. Qin Ming nodded with a smile. He was someone who had attended a martial arts university. And naturally, he couldn't be confused with someone like Huang Weijun who rose through connections. Thank you, Principal Qin. Lin Lei maintained a certain level of respect for this student of the old principal. But right now, what's most important to me isn't about civility or morality. Instead, he needed to complete the system-issued task as quickly as possible. Just as he was thinking about how to speak, Qin Ming seemed to sense his thoughts and stepped aside, revealing a device for testing qi and blood. Let's test your qi and blood. If your qi and blood are too poor, I can find a way to improve them quickly, at least until you get your quasi-martial artist certificate. Qin Ming was quite concerned about Lin Lei's situation. Although this symptom of being unable to improve qi and blood was rare, almost every case could bankrupt a family. Seeing this, Lin Lei no longer hesitated, strode forward, and then lay down inside the device. Watching him walk with such an imposing gait, Qin Ming couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Didn't the teacher say his qi and blood were only 15 points? How come he walks with such an imposing aura? Qin Ming was puzzled, but seeing Lin Lei already inside the instrument, he simply started it to test his qi and blood. Liu Lan, meanwhile, was intently watching the screen, wanting to see how Lin Lei's qi and blood had changed since last month's test. However, the next second, her beautiful eyes narrowed sharply, because the initial number displayed on the screen was alarmingly high. 50 points? This was Lin Lei's qi and blood in a static state, if given some stimulation. In an instant, Liu Lan and Qin Ming exchanged a glance, both seeing the surprise in each other's eyes. However, before they could ask, the number jumped again. 70 points, 0.80 points, 0.90 points. Then the number surged past 100 points without any hindrance, finally settling steadily at 150. Seeing this, Qin Ming's mouth dropped open, and he exclaimed in surprise, 150 points of qi and blood. You're a mid-stage Tier 1 martial artist? At this moment, the entire martial arts arena was completely silent. Even though Qin Ming and Liu Lan were both second-tier martial artists, they couldn't help but be astonished by the data before them. 150 points of qi and blood. Lin Lei wasn't even considered a newly entered first-tier martial artist. It meant he had been stuck at this level for quite some time. Otherwise, according to the qi and blood test, the qi and blood points of a newly entered first-tier martial artist would fluctuate, but Lin Lei's data was unusually stable, suggesting he had already broken through to the first-tier martial artist level. Principal, Teacher Liu, how is it? Lin Lei looked at the two dumbfounded people, a hint of tension in his eyes. Although he knew his strength had reached the first-tier martial artist level, he didn't know the specific data. Hearing his voice, the two immediately snapped out of their astonishment. After exchanging a glance, they both saw the shock in each other's eyes. A first-level martial artist and a first-level martial artist in the senior year of high school at that. Such talent, let alone in the Bright District, would be considered top-tier genius even in Heijiang City. Now that such a genius was at number 13 middle school, how could they, as teachers, not be excited? Good. I originally thought the teacher was going to give me a difficult problem, but I didn't expect it to be such a pleasant surprise. Qin Ming was overjoyed, his face beaming with smiles, looking at Lin Lei with satisfaction. He had only become the principal of number 13 middle school this year. Although his strength was not weak, he was much younger than other principals. Furthermore, number 13 middle school's overall strength was not as good as other schools, so it had always been looked down upon as an ignorant junior. But now, the appearance of Lin Lei, a first-tier martial artist, gave Qin Ming hope for his future advancement. What could be more satisfying for the association than training a first-tier martial artist? Although Lin Lei previously studied at number 1 middle school, so what? Expelling him would have been like letting a pearl be tarnished. but number 13 middle school accepted Lin Lei, showing great discernment. Lin Lei, your chi and blood value is stable at 150 points, which is no longer considered a beginner first-tier martial artist. Moreover, I believe that if you were given some external stimulation, your chi and blood would definitely be even higher. But the school doesn't have the facilities for that, so you can have it measured at the Martial Arts Association later. Qin Ming stroked his chin thoughtfully for a long time before finally revealing the truth. Teacher Liu, I remember there are still quite a few empty rooms in the boys' dormitory. Take Lin Lei to choose a room and let him stay alone. Make sure no one disturbs his cultivation. Okay. Liu Lan naturally wouldn't refuse such treatment. Although she didn't know what had happened to Lin Lei, everyone has their own secrets. As long as Lin Lei doesn't cause trouble, he's a first-tier martial artist with exceptional talent. Thank you, Principal. Lin Lei didn't refuse the kindness and immediately thanked her with a smile. Afterwards, Liu Lan took Lin Lei to the boys' dormitory. To protect Lin Lei's privacy, Liu Lan specially chose a dormitory that had just been renovated this year for him to stay in. Looking at the pleasant environment of the room, Lin Lei couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He took out his phone and informed his parents that he had entered number 13 middle school, then drew the curtains and sat on the bed. Open my backpack. Take everything out. With the command given, a light screen appeared in front of Lin Lei. Backpack. Heavenly Divine Weapon *1, Fire Dragon Body Refining Pill, Tier 1 *1. Soon, the backpack was emptied, and a crimson pill suddenly appeared in front of Lin Lei, radiating a scorching aura. Next to the pill was a scroll, flashing with images of different weapons. Seeing these two items, Lin Lei took a deep breath and then grabbed the scroll. Please select Heavenly Divine Weapon. In an instant, Lin Lei felt a transformation around him. His dormitory suddenly transformed into a starry sky, and each star was a unique divine weapon. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but gasp. You must know that divine weapons only come from the abyss. They are extremely rare weapons that only the most elite martial artists can obtain. Now, they were like stars before him. HMPH, let's see a longsword first. Lin Lei took a deep breath to calm himself, intending to first see what was so wondrous about these divine weapons. As soon as he finished speaking, a crimson longsword appeared before him. This sword exuded a terrifying aura. Its sharp, cold gleam even made Lin Lei feel a bone-chilling cold. However, he didn't make a choice because he wasn't interested in swordsmanship. Or rather, as a martial artist, he only trusted his own fists. Knuckle dusters. After a moment's thought, Lin Lei chose his preferred weapon, knuckle dusters. This weapon was not only easy to carry, but its inconspicuous nature sometimes allowed it to be used unexpectedly. The next second, the longsword vanished, replaced by a pair of knuckle dusters. They were pitch black, completely swallowed by light. Seeing the knuckle dusters, Lin Lei smiled, then grabbed them and put them on his hands. Instantly, his internal energy surged into them, and the knuckle dusters seemed to obey his will. The short spikes on them could grow and shrink at will. Most importantly, blood and energy can circulate within it without any loss. All right, I choose you. Upon seeing the knuckle dusters, Lin Lei immediately made his choice. The next second, he was back in his dormitory, the name of the knuckle dusters appearing in his mind. Gluttonous Ring absorbs the opponent's stamina when injuring. After killing a non-human enemy, it absorbs their blood and energy to replenish itself. Truly worthy of being a divine weapon of heaven and earth, it is terrifying beyond compare. Looking at the description of the Gluttonous Ring, Lin Lei couldn't help but gasp. Being able to absorb the enemy's stamina and blood and energy meant he wouldn't have to fear prolonged battles in the future. Looking down at the Gluttonous Ring, which had transformed into gloves, Lin Lei nodded to himself. This is the best state to be in normally. There's no need to worry about anyone noticing he's carrying a weapon. He then shifted his gaze, focusing on the Fire Dragon Body Refining Pill. This pill seemed to have faint traces of scales on it, looking like a small dragon egg. Dried. Lin Lei tossed it directly into his mouth, instantly feeling a scorching heat rising from his stomach. In an instant, this heat began to rampage through his body, scattering his previously well-organized blood and chi, and then directly piercing into his bones and blood. Hiss! This excruciating pain made Lin Lei involuntarily groan, feeling as if countless ants were biting him all over his body. However, this pain didn't last long. The intense heat was quickly absorbed by the demon's body, transforming into a warm current that continuously nourished its damaged form. Half an hour later, the strange sensation completely dissipated. Lin Lei stood up and looked at his body, discovering a faint layer of blood and energy still flowing on his skin, almost imperceptible without close inspection. Boom! He threw a punch, and a sonic boom like thunder resounded. Seeing this, a slight smile appeared on his lips. With this kind of strength, why should I fear the martial arts examination? I'm afraid any school I choose will treat me like a precious treasure. The next day, Lin Lei walked out of his dormitory. His current class was class 1 of the 3rd year of high school, and his homeroom teacher was still Liu Lan. If she hadn't come, Principal Qin Ming would probably have had to take on the role of homeroom teacher himself. As soon as he entered the classroom, Lin Lei noticed many people staring at him. As a transfer student, he knew he was an oddball in the class, so he ignored them and found an empty seat. Before he could even settle into his seat, Liu Lan called him over. Lin Lei, you don't need to attend class with them. Entering the office, Liu Lan went straight to the point. However, this question puzzled Lin Lei. What else could a student do if he didn't attend class? Seeing him frown, Liu Lan quickly explained. Don't worry, it's because your strength is too great, far exceeding that of a senior high school student. Isn't the martial arts examination about to begin? The principal plans to take you to the Abyss Rift in Hejiang City to train. That way, you'll achieve better results in the martial arts examination in the future. Hearing this, Lin Lei felt a chill run down his spine. The Abyss. This is an absolutely terrifying existence. It could even be said that 99% of martial artists die in the Abyss. Moreover, because of the Abyss, all the animals in the forests surrounding Hejiang City have been wiped out, leaving only magical beasts from the Abyss. However, fortunately, what appeared in Hejiang City was only the Abyss Rift. Even the highest-level magical beasts are only at the level of second-tier martial artists, so they won't cause too many casualties. What are you scared? Seeing Lin Lei standing there speechless, Liu Lan smiled. In her opinion, knowing fear was definitely a good thing. Otherwise, arrogance would only increase the risk of perishing in the Abyss. Back in her school days, she had entered the Abyss Rifts many times, and each time she had witnessed the deaths of acquaintances. Therefore, Liu Lan was satisfied with Lin Lei's hesitation. No, with the principal here, I shouldn't need to worry about these things. Hearing this, Lin Lei shook his head, a confident smile appearing on his lips. Although the Abyss is full of the risk of death for most people, for him, it is a place where danger and opportunity coexist. His strength is greater than yesterday. He desperately needed a worthy opponent to practice against, and the monsters of the Abyss were clearly the best choice. Just then, a notification popped up on the system panel. Quest issued. Emerging talent. As a martial artist, your mission is to protect the weak. The monsters of the Abyss have been harming people for a long time, so you have decided to enter the Abyss and fight them, killing one monster of any level. Quest reward. Foundation Strengthening Pill *1. Foundation Strengthening Pill. Can make your blood and chi more refined and slightly increase your overall base stats. Seeing this, Lin Lei felt even more excited about entering the Abyss. Although he now possessed the body of a demon god, and had his body reshaped by the Fire Dragon Body Refining Pill, the effects of the Foundation Strengthening Pill were clearly not bad. A slight improvement in all aspects, this will save me a lot of cultivation time. Seeing Lin Lei agree, Liu Lan nodded. In that case, go to the principal's office, he should be ready by now. Remember, your safety comes first. After saying goodbye to Liu Lan, Lin Lei went to the principal's office. As soon as he went downstairs, he found Principal Qin Ming standing quietly in the martial arts arena, waiting for him. Seeing Lin Lei appear, Qin Ming naturally knew what was going on. Since you're ready, why don't we set off now? Okay, Lin Lei wasn't opposed to going to the Abyss. On the contrary, he felt a little anticipation. That place is the burial ground of martial artists, but it is also the place where they rise to prominence. Some martial artists with mediocre talent, due to great opportunities, soar to great heights and even become renowned powerhouses. Having said that, Qin Ming drove Lin Lei out of Hejiang City, and finally, with practiced ease, drove through the suburbs to an enormous building. This was the headquarters of the Demon Suppression Army, which suppressed the Abyss Rift. To enter the rift, one must obtain permission from the Demon Suppression Army. Even the Martial Arts Association cannot bring people in without authorization. Looking at the building, tens of meters high, Lin Lei couldn't help but feel shocked. It wasn't because he had never seen such a tall building before, but because this building was actually constructed from the skeleton of an incredibly large demonic beast. Seeing Lin Lei's astonished expression, Qin Ming explained with a smile, "This is the body of a 6th-tier magical beast, the Holy Seal Ancient Ape. Magical beasts of this level only exist in the vast world of the Abyss. Even the Abyss rifts in Hejiang City, and some fragments of smaller Abyss worlds, cannot give birth to such a terrifying existence." Looking at this colossal creature, Qin Ming was filled with emotion. When he first arrived here, he was stunned for a long time. Back then, he even dreamed of killing such a magical beast. But so many years have passed, and Qin Ming is now in his 40s or 50s. Naturally, he no longer has any unrealistic dreams. "What are your feelings?" The two walked in, and Qin Ming asked with a smile. After a moment of thought, Lin Lei slowly said, "In the future, I hope I can crush such magical beasts as easily as crushing insects." Upon hearing this, Qin Ming was initially taken aback, but then burst into laughter. To crush a 6th-tier magical beast like an insect, such strength is probably only achievable by 8th-tier or even 9th-tier martial artists. And those who have reached that level are considered national treasures, possessing a terrifying deterrent power comparable to a nuclear strike before the abyss descends. It should be known that there are probably only 1,000 or so 8th-tier or higher martial artists in the entire Great Xia Kingdom, and 9th-tier martial artists are extremely rare. To break through to that level, besides exceptional talent, one also needs great fortune. Good, having this ambition already surpasses that of ordinary people. However, Qin Ming did not discourage Lin Lei. In his view, having this ideal was already extremely difficult, and as his teacher, what he needed most was guidance. Seeing his reaction, Lin Lei smiled but didn't say anything more. To ordinary people, what he said today would seem utterly ridiculous, but only he knew that with the system at his disposal, he would definitely reach that realm in the future. He might even become the fastest person in history to break through to the 8th or 9th rank. The staff member next to him also smiled faintly upon hearing this. In their eyes, Lin Lei was a typical example of a newborn calf unafraid of tigers. He would only learn to face reality after experiencing trials and tribulations. "Hello, we are going to enter the Abyss Rift for training." Qin Ming led Lin Lei to the front desk, where they received 2 special tokens and a distress bracelet. Wearing the items, Lin Lei followed Qin Ming into the passageway. Every 10 meters or so, fully armed soldiers of the Demon Suppression Army could be seen standing guard. Soon, the two arrived at the depths of the tunnel, where a massive fissure appeared before them. The dangerous aura emanating from within even made Lin Lei feel his breath catch in his throat. "Let's go." Qin Ming nodded, then stepped into it. Seeing this, Lin Lei held his breath and followed. This was the abyss fissure of Hejiang City, and also the starting point of Lin Lei's rise. Passing through the crack, Lin Lei opened his eyes again to find himself no longer in modern society. All he saw was a desolate wasteland. The martial artists who had been training here were huddled together, many wounded lying on the ground panting. The overall atmosphere was incredibly heavy. "This is the abyss." Qin Ming didn't explain much. The surrounding environment perfectly illustrated what horrific violence meant. Looking at the wounded around him, Lin Lei's expression grew grave. He had always thought that the Great Xia Kingdom had completely suppressed the abyss, but the current situation was vastly different from what he had imagined. This wasn't suppressing the abyss, it was clearly a desperate struggle at a terrible cost. "Headmaster, I want to go kill some magical beasts." Staying in this atmosphere for too long, Lin Lei felt a fire burning within him. It wasn't anger nor resentment, but simply a feeling of utter frustration. Why, after paying such a high price, did he only barely manage to contend with the abyss? This fire burned more and more intensely, making Lin Lei feel unbearably hot and wanting to release it completely. "Let's go." Qin Ming, of course, understood Lin Lei's situation. He had also felt deeply distressed when he witnessed this scene, even feeling he could tear a first-tier magical beast apart with his bare hands, though he ultimately failed. Soon, the two left the martial artist's gathering place and arrived at a wilderness several kilometers away. The magical beasts in this area had all been cleared out, so their quantity and quality weren't particularly good. Most were just newly matured or newly entered first-tier magical beasts. There's a buck-toothed rat over there. Its strength is equivalent to a first-tier early-stage martial artist. You can give it a try. Remember not to make a sound. Buck-toothed rats are social magical beasts. If you attract a swarm, it'll be hard to escape. Chen Ming simply closed his eyes and sensed the surroundings, immediately noticing a magical beast hiding in the grass. Following the direction the other person was pointing, Lin Lei saw a dark shadow hiding in the grass, currently making a grinding sound. He nodded, then slowly moved towards that direction. But as soon as he parted the grass, his eyes widened instantly. This buck-toothed rat, over a meter long, wasn't grinding its teeth at all. It was clearly gnawing on a martial artist's corpse. The creature's body was badly rotten. The thigh had been almost completely devoured by the fanged rat, hence the grinding sound. Squeak! Seemingly noticing Lin Lei's presence, the fanged rat turned its head, its massive incisors still stained with bright red blood. Instantly, its small eyes turned bloodshot, and it dropped the corpse it was carrying and charged directly at Lin Lei. What's so delicious about rotting flesh? This is fresh food delivered right to your door. However, noticing its actions, Lin Lei's anger had reached its peak. He didn't consider himself a saint, but seeing the warriors protecting their homeland being so insulted by these magical beasts, he could no longer restrain himself. Die! The anger in his chest surged like a flood, his blood and energy gathered in his right hand, and Lin Lei threw a punch. The sonic boom it caused even caught the attention of Chen Ming, who was over 50 meters away. Lin Lei's right hand slammed into the buck-toothed rat, the compressed air pressure crushing its internal organs, and the gluttonous ring on his finger pierced through its heart. In a single exchange, the magical beast was completely killed by Lin Lei. Quest completed. Obtained foundation strengthening pill *1. Looking at the buck-toothed rat's corpse in his hand, Lin Lei's face was filled with anger as he slammed it to the ground. However, at that moment, he suddenly heard Chen Ming's warning. Run! Lin Lei seemed to realize something and immediately took off running. However, although his reaction was quick, it was too late. A dozen or so buck-toothed rats, drawn by the scent, surrounded him, while another 20 or 30 charged towards Chen Ming from a distance. The commotion had alerted all the surrounding buck-toothed rats, who were now rushing out to completely contain Lin Lei and Chen Ming. Kid, hold on. Although Chen Ming wanted to help Lin Lei, the 20 or 30 buck-toothed rats completely blocked his way. Even with his strength as a second-tier martial artist, he wouldn't suffer a fatal injury, but breaking through the encirclement in a short time was almost impossible. Furthermore, since he had brought Lin Lei along for training, he hadn't carried any weapons, which significantly reduced Chen Ming's combat power. Seemingly having successfully separated the two, the buck-toothed rat's small eyes revealed a hint of smugness. Squeak! Suddenly, a fanged rat launched a sneak attack from behind Lin Lei, immediately spurring the other fanged rats into action. In an instant, these dozen or so demonic beasts attacked Lin Lei from different directions, intent on killing him. However, seeing this, a mocking smile appeared on Lin Lei's lips. Then, with a thought, the gluttonous rings on his hands bloomed like lotus flowers. Kill! With a flurry of movements, the basic fist techniques he had honed over the years seemed to come alive in this moment, and with each strike, Lin Lei took the life of a demonic beast. Blood appeared, and countless drops of blood transformed into blooming ominous flowers. Bang! The last buck-toothed rat's corpse fell to the ground. In just 1 minute, all the buck-toothed rats around Lin Lei were killed. The gluttonous ring on his hand was a bewitching red. The stored blood energy was transformed into a ball of blood essence, entering Lin Lei's body to replenish his depleted strength. Phew, that's it. Lin Lei exhaled a breath of stale air, his gaze turning towards Chen Ming's direction. His opponent was now engaged in a fierce battle. These buck-toothed rats knew Chen Ming was stronger, so they gave him no chance. Seeing this, Lin Lei didn't waste any words and charged directly into the horde of magical beasts. With a punch and a kick, he killed a buck-toothed rat equivalent to a late-stage first-tier martial artist. Noticing that Lin Lei had killed all his companions, the buck-toothed rats instantly let out an angry roar. What's going on? Chen Ming discovered that half of the buck-toothed rats surrounding him were gone, and he desperately forced back the surrounding magical beasts. When he looked up, he saw that Lin Lei was now like a god of death. His movements were incredibly swift, each move fluid and graceful, possessing a pleasing aesthetic appeal, but it was not without lethality. In fact, it could be said that Lin Lei was now much stronger than some who were about to break through to the second tier of martial artists. Seeing this, Chen Ming was instantly stunned. Without a weapon, it was naturally difficult for him to kill these first-tier magical beasts, but Lin Lei's attack power was simply too great. Even as a second-tier martial artist, Lin Lei himself would find it difficult to pierce the hide of a fanged rat with a single punch. Yet against Lin Lei, these fanged rats were like sandbags, completely incapable of retaliating. In just 5 minutes, Lin Lei had killed all the fanged rats that had surrounded him without even sustaining a scratch. You call him a first-tier martial artist? He's more like a killing machine at this moment. Chen Ming's mind was in complete disarray. His teacher had said Lin Lei's qi and blood value was only 15 points, but yesterday's test showed it was 150 points. Chen Ming had assumed Lin Lei lacked combat experience, but the man had swiftly and decisively killed the magical beast. Just now, he was surrounded and almost couldn't hold on, but Lin Lei wiped out the entire band of buck-toothed rats. Could this be the martial artist of the new era? Am I, this old guy, already out of touch with the times? Chen Ming felt his worldview crumbling. When did he, a second-tier martial artist, become so weak, even inferior to Lin Lei, a high school senior? But looking at the bloody scene before him, he took a deep breath to compose himself, then picked up the corpse of a buck-toothed rat. Looking at the huge bloody hole in the corpse, Chen Ming couldn't help but shake his head. Young man, you're too bloodthirsty. That buck-toothed rat's carcass is worth 1,000 yuan. You've gone and lost 20,000 or 30,000 yuan in one go. Hearing this, Lin Lei, who had been standing there waiting for praise, instantly grimaced. Don't underestimate the amount of money. What's his family's situation? His parents are in poor health and need recuperation. He can't let them go out to earn money in the future. On the first day, he squandered 20,000 or 30,000 yuan. What a tragedy. It hurts. Lin Lei clutched his chest, his face filled with grief and indignation. Seeing this scene, Chen Ming couldn't help but chuckle. This Lin Lei was acting so invincible just now. The fact that he looked so distressed about money was truly both laughable and pathetic. All right, don't be sad. With your strength, why would you need to worry about this little bit of money? Perform well in the martial arts exam, and plenty of people will send you money. Chen Ming patted Lin Lei on the shoulder with a smile. He couldn't be more satisfied with this student. It was practically a political achievement delivered to his doorstep. The key point was that he hadn't actually put in any effort. The student had genuinely been brought here with a letter of recommendation. Thinking of this, Chen Ming felt a blush creep down his face. Your cultivation technique seems to be still a basic one. Although you'll definitely pass the martial arts exam in Hejiang City, if you could aim for a provincial or national ranking, it will be better for your future. Here's what I'm going to say. I've managed to get you a suitable cultivation technique these past few days. It's absolutely top-notch. Chen Ming recalled Lin Lei's actions just now and then made the suggestion. Lin Lei naturally wouldn't refuse such a good thing that was offered to him. Thank you very much, Principal. He nodded his thanks with a smile. His own basic fist techniques were indeed somewhat lackluster. Whether it was the gluttonous ring or the demon god body, these mainland-made techniques were really not up to par. Seeing Lin Lei agree, Chen Ming didn't say anything more, but turned around and said, You just killed so many demonic beasts. Even if you weren't injured, you're probably exhausted. Go back and rest now. Don't let weakness in your qi and blood lead to any lasting health problems. Although Lin Lei wanted to explain that he wasn't weak, he obviously couldn't say so now. A high school senior killing so many magical beasts and still being so vigorous, even if he had extraordinary talent, it was still a bit too far-fetched. Plus, having obtained the foundation strengthening pill, he could go back and cultivate properly. Thinking this, he followed Chen Ming away from the demon suppression army's camp and then returned to number 13 middle school. However, Lin Lei didn't plan to stay at school today because the Martial Arts Association had already repaired his house, and he needed to go back with his parents. But just after they left, a soldier in military uniform with a resolute face stepped into the spatial rift. General Chen, the spatial rift in Hejiang City, has been showing considerable unusual activity recently. If the martial arts examination were held here, and the demonic beasts went berserk, we'd likely suffer heavy losses. The secretary beside him wore a worried expression, but General Chen scanned his surroundings and said in a low voice, 150 years ago, our great Xia kingdom was invaded by the abyss. It was the lives of countless martial artists that sustained this nation. If future generations of martial artists don't even have the ability to handle emergencies, what kind of martial artists are they? Moreover, the Demon Suppression Army will provide training before the martial arts examination, so there's no need to worry too much. Speaking of this, General Chen frowned. His real name was Chen Pajan, and he too had begun cultivating at the beginning of the Abyss invasion, now reaching the 5th rank. Originally, as the Great Xia Kingdom grew stronger, dealing with the Abyss should become increasingly easier. However, in recent years, many abyssal rifts in Great Xia have fallen, making Chen Pajan realize that while the nation is indeed powerful, its martial artists have lost their fighting spirit. Therefore, this time, he plans to use Hejiang City as a demonstration site, changing the martial arts examination, which originally only consisted of arena matches, to hunting magical beasts in the abyssal rifts. Only in this way can these younger generations understand the abilities and responsibilities a martial artist should possess through battle. But I'll bear the consequences, you only need to. Chen Pajan's expression was impatient. These scholars loved to worry about this and that. He was about to suppress his temper and say a few words of comfort when he saw the corpse of the fanged rat on the ground. Looking at the bloody hole in the corpse, Chen Pajan immediately showed curiosity. General, the fanged rat is just a low-level magical beast. It's possible it was killed by a second-tier martial artist. The secretary didn't take this seriously, intending to brush it off and continue discussing the martial artist examination. But Chen Pajan shook his head, pointing to the blood hole. Based on my observation, the residual blood and qi on the corpses don't seem to belong to a second-tier martial artist who has reached the peak of their qi and blood. If I'm not mistaken, it should be from a first-tier martial artist. Besides, one blood hole doesn't prove anything, but what if the ground is covered with fanged rat corpses? With that, Chen Pajan unleashed a palm strike, the powerful pressure instantly scattering the grass and revealing 40 or 50 fanged rat corpses. The most difficult thing is that all these corpses were killed with a single blow. Seeing this scene, the secretary was instantly stunned, while Chen Pajan, stroking his chin, hurriedly rushed back. Quickly, send someone to check the surveillance footage. I want to see which first-tier martial artist can bring me such a big surprise. If they can be properly nurtured, perhaps they will break through to the 6th tier in the future. Just as Chen Pajan was excitedly investigating the first-tier martial artist, Lin Lei had already moved all his belongings back home. His parents were cooking, their faces still bearing the bright smiles of returning home. But Lin Lei sat in the living room, his expression somewhat solemn. Ever since returning home, he had sensed that something had been there, but despite searching every corner meticulously, he couldn't find anything unusual. This very unease only made Lin Lei feel more puzzled. What is it that makes me feel like I'm being watched? He frowned, sensing that this matter that had come knocking on his door was definitely not something simple. Although the feeling of being spied on was intense, Lin Lei couldn't pinpoint its source all day. However, for his parents' safety, he decided to leave the house empty until he resolved the strange situation. After much persuasion, his parents finally agreed to go on a short trip to a nearby city. Watching his parents get into the car and leave, Lin Lei finally breathed a sigh of relief. He glanced up at his room, feeling a persistent sense of unease that a pair of eyes were watching him intently. What could it be? Lin Lei frowned, a growing sense of unease creeping into his heart. Just as he was pondering how to find this source, his phone suddenly lit up. Upon opening it, he saw a message from Principal Qin Ming. The cultivation technique has been selected. Come to the school to collect it. Upon seeing this message, Lin Lei was overjoyed. Although the principal was only a second-tier martial artist, he had been around for many years. Anything he mentioned couldn't be ordinary. Meanwhile, a new system task appeared. Task issued, Martial Arts Maniac. Although you are nearly 40 and your energy is declining, your amazing performance has earned you the appreciation of the school teachers. Now it's time to show your true strength. Master the acquired technique on the same day. Task reward, Martial Arts Technique Ninefold Thunder Force. Ninefold Thunder Force. Leg swings like lightning, punches like thunder, each move stronger than the last. Even the strongest magical beast of the same realm couldn't withstand the ninth punch. Upon seeing this martial arts manual, Lin Lei was overjoyed. What he lacked wasn't just a cultivation technique, but more importantly, a means of killing. This martial arts manual from the system was clearly perfect for him, and most importantly, it had no rank. Martial arts manuals without rank are generally either extremely weak or extremely strong. And judging from the system's past rewards, there were no bad ones. With anticipation in his heart, Lin Lei put aside the eerie feeling of being spied on at home and went straight to school. As a special student in Principal Chen Ming's eyes, Lin Lei naturally received special treatment. Whether he attended classes or not was entirely up to him. The security guard let him through without any hindrance, although he hadn't intended to stop him, as a man in his 60s. What's the point of risking your life for just a few hundred yuan a month? As he approached the office door, he saw Principal Chen Ming holding a small booklet, a smile of appreciation on his face. Sensing someone's approach, Chen Ming looked up and saw Lin Lei standing in the doorway. Lin Lei, come. This cultivation technique took me a lot of effort to obtain. It's an extremely rare and precious technique in Hejiang City. Chen Ming led Lin Lei to sit down and then placed the newly printed booklet in Lin Lei's hands. Holding the booklet, Lin Lei smelled the fragrance of ink. Opening it, the 5 large characters, Dragon Elephant Body Refining Technique, immediately came into view. This is one of the few third-tier cultivation techniques in Hejiang City. I had to pull some strings to get it from the Martial Arts Association. Remember, privately passing on cultivation techniques is illegal. Destroy it immediately after you've read it. Seeing Lin Lei so engrossed, Chen Ming didn't say much, only briefly explaining the precautions before remaining silent. Lin Lei, however, was completely absorbed. Although this Dragon Elephant Body Refining Technique asterisk was a third-tier technique, its cultivation difficulty was exceptionally high, even comparable to some fourth-tier techniques. This technique could strengthen a martial artist's physical body and blood, and even increase strength to a certain extent. However, cultivating this technique was extremely difficult, requiring soaking the body in the blood of different magical beasts. While these might be somewhat difficult for others, they were no problem for Lin Lei. Isn't it just monster blood? Why not just go to the Abyss Rift and kill a few monsters? Try circulating the cultivation technique first. After reading the entire cultivation technique, Lin Lei focused his energy on his dantian, concentrating entirely on cultivation. He sat cross-legged on the ground, then slowly absorbed the true energy of heaven and earth to refine his qi and blood. Only after successfully guiding qi into his body according to the technique could he continue cultivating the Dragon Elephant Body Refining Technique asterisk. However, with each breath, the qi and blood within his body began to circulate rhythmically, like the ebb and flow of the tide. But what surprised him most was that his demonic body and the Dragon Elephant Body Refining Technique asterisk were perfectly compatible. After guiding qi into his body, the speed at which his demonic body strengthened its qi and blood was significantly faster, and even a faint thunderous sound could be heard within his body. Braked! Lin Lei let out a low shout, instantly feeling as if some kind of shackle had been broken within his body. Even without instruments to measure his qi and blood, he could clearly feel the changes in his body. However, in Chen Ming's eyes, although Lin Lei had only increased his qi and blood significantly, just a casual glance made him feel as if he were being watched by some terrifying being. He felt like an ant crawling at the feet of a giant, completely unable to muster any will to resist. Mission completed. At nearly 40 years old, you were able to comprehend a cultivation technique on the spot, a scene that stunned everyone present. You have obtained the martial art, Ninefold Thunder Force. Just as Lin Lei was overjoyed at his breakthrough, the system mission was also completed. Instantly, Lin Lei felt as if something had appeared in his mind. These were the techniques for using the martial art, Ninefold Thunder Force. Contrary to Lin Lei's expectations, cultivating Ninefold Thunder Force wasn't too difficult, and it was a martial art applicable to all levels of cultivation. But the most fatal flaw was that each use of Ninefold Thunder Force placed an exponentially greater burden on the body compared to the previous move. If the pressure the body had to bear for the first move was 1 point, then the pressure for the ninth move was 360 points, enough to almost completely crush a martial artist's body. However, such terrifying pressure also brought extremely powerful attacks. Not to mention the cumulative power of the ninth move, the second strike alone was comparable to Lin Lei's current full-force attack. As expected of a martial art gifted by the system, this move is truly terrifying. After absorbing the information about the Ninefold Thunder Force, Lin Lei couldn't help but gasp in amazement. In the Great Xia Kingdom, such a technique would practically be a closely guarded secret, accessible only to top-tier martial artists. Now that he had mastered such a martial art, it would be a complete waste if he couldn't become invincible among those of the same cultivation level. Thank you, Principal, for the technique. With the technique and martial arts in hand, Lin Lei planned to find a place to test them out. He bid farewell to Qin Ming and prepared to go to the martial arts school to practice. However, after leaving the school, Lin Lei found his phone suddenly ringing. It was his mother, Chen Fang, calling. He opened the phone, about to speak, when he heard a cold voice on the other end. Lin Lei, is that you? I'll wait for you in the abandoned park in the southeastern suburbs of Hejiang City. If I see anyone following you, they can expect to be collecting your parents' corpses. After saying this, Lin Lei's face turned ashen. From the voice, he was certain he didn't know the other person, but what Lin Lei hated most in his life was being threatened with his family. In silence, Lin Lei moved swiftly through the streets, his movements as unpredictable as lightning. His blood surged, and he exuded an undisguised killing intent. If Lin Lei hadn't been carefully controlling his strength, he could have easily crushed everything in his path. After half an hour of this rapid movement, he finally arrived at an abandoned park on the outskirts of Hejiang City. The rusty swing creaked in the wind, and vines, like the claws of a demonic beast, tore the seemingly indestructible rocks apart. On the flattened, lush green grass, Lin Lei could even see faint traces of blood. Suddenly, he felt his heart clench, and his mind seemed to freeze. Clatter tilde. Lin Lei clenched his fists, the bones cracking and popping. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then walked straight into the park. Before he could see the people who had kidnapped his parents, he heard voices coming from inside the park. Martial Master, we haven't offended you. Yes, if you want money, we can give you money. If you want revenge, go find them. Martial Master, we are just ordinary people. It was this couple's children who offended you. Please don't harm us. You two jinxes, why don't you kowtow and apologize to the Martial Master right now? Only a series of angry curses came from within. Lin Lei knew without even thinking that. It must be the discontent of those who were captured along with him. After all, for them, this was just an ordinary trip, but they were kidnapped by a martial artist and their lives were in danger. Therefore, let alone cursing, even physical violence wouldn't be unreasonable. But now it was his parents who were in this predicament, so in Lin Lei's eyes, these people were simply courting death. Shut up. Just as he was about to show himself, an angry shout rang out. A bunch of ants still making a racket here, I'll kill you all later. Lin Lei killed my brother, I'll send his parents down today. And later that little beast will be buried with my brother. The owner of the voice was incredibly arrogant, seemingly utterly unafraid of the Martial Arts Association's sanctions. However, as soon as the voice fell, the group of people who had been shouting just moments before immediately shut their mouths, cowering in fear, terrified that this lawless martial artist before them would riot. From the other person's words, Lin Lei guessed their identity, the martial artist behind Brother Long, the one who allowed him to raise rents so recklessly, a peak first-tier martial artist, Li Fenggu. As he spoke, Li Fenggu walked to a tree. Lin Lei's parents, Lin Zhan and Chen Fang, were tied to the tree, having been given a special drug that rendered them unable to even speak. However, their eyes showed no worry other than resentment. After all, Lin Lei had become a martial artist. Even if they died, they would have no regrets. Looking at the two stubborn individuals, Li Fenggu felt a surge of anger. A bunch of bastards, can't you just pay up? It's all your fault for being so ungrateful. Li Fenggu was now almost delirious. His only brother was dead, and he was wanted by the Martial Arts Association. His hopes of advancing to a higher level of martial arts were gone. What he wanted to do now was simple. Let that little bee D Lin Lei experience what despair truly meant. Therefore, he had placed some shady items from the black market in Lin Lei's house, thus knowing everything about Lin Lei's actions. Originally, with a new martial artist in charge of the slums, he couldn't act, but now that Lin Lei's parents had appeared in the suburbs, it gave him the opportunity. Hattie, didn't Lin Lei break through to the level of a martial artist? I already called him, but I don't know if he, a mere first-tier martial artist, has the guts to come. Oh, by the way, I am Li Fenggu, a peak first-tier martial artist. When you get down there, don't complain to the King of Hell about the wrong person. With that, Li Fenggu raised his right fist, ready to strike. However, just then, a whooshing sound came. Instantly, Li Fenggu raised an eyebrow. He reached behind him and grabbed a flying pebble in his hand. Crack! The fist-sized pebble was instantly crushed. You've got guts. Li Fenggu turned around with a cruel smile, his gaze fixed ahead. A mere first-tier martial artist dares to come here? Lin Lei, my brother's death at your hands was truly deserved. But today you must die. In his vision, Lin Lei slowly emerged from the weeds, his face expressionless, devoid of joy or sorrow, only filled with intense killing intent. At this moment, Lin Lei was like a raging demonic beast. He appeared harmless, but if he attacked, he would surely kill with a single blow. These words should be spoken to you. Lin Lei's voice was calm. At this moment, everyone turned to look, and hope flickered in their previously despairing eyes. But in the eyes of Lin Zhan and his wife, there was only worry. They struggled to break free of their bonds, and the mother, Chen Fang, even shed tears of anxiety. Although Lin Lei was only a first-tier martial artist, Li Fenggu had already reached the peak of the first tier. If they were to fight, who knew what would happen? For a moment, the scene became chaotic, but Li Fenggu paid no attention. Because his goal was to kill Lin Lei. Good B ****D die. Li Fenggu grinned maliciously and took a step forward, appearing in front of Lin Lei. His hands, like poisonous dragons, reached directly for Lin Lei's neck and heart. As a peak first-tier martial artist, Li Fenggu knew very well what his greatest advantage was. That was his internal blood and qi. Any technique would be futile against a direct, head-on attack, so even though he knew many martial arts techniques, he still chose to attack head-on. However, in Lin Lei's eyes, Li Fenggu's movements were like those of a clown. He didn't even retaliate to defend. Instead, he prepared to take the blow head-on. In Li Fenggu's crazed gaze, his poisoned dragon hand struck Lin Lei directly. Bang! A muffled sound rang out. However, Lin Lei's body only swayed slightly. Not even a scratch appeared on his skin, as if the attack hadn't hit him at all. How is this possible? Seeing this, Li Fenggu's eyes widened, filled with nothing but terror. This was a full-force attack, yet Lin Lei hadn't even broken through his defenses. This guy is only a first-tier martial artist? Even a second-tier martial artist couldn't do it so easily. But Lin Lei wouldn't explain to him. He just glanced at Li Fenggu, a slight smirk playing on his lips. My turn. Before he finished speaking, he threw a punch, the Ninefold Thunder Force. Seeing Lin Lei's punch, Li Fenggu hurriedly raised his hands to his chest. Boom. A strange force struck, sending Li Fenggu flying. His arm was completely mangled. How did you do that? He was terrified, his movements completely erratic. But Lin Lei's response was the second punch of the Ninefold Thunder Force. At this moment, Lin Lei's blood and qi were boiling, as if he were being boiled alive. If I don't vent this soon, my energy and blood might backfire and harm my body. Sizzle tilde. The Taoti ring struck Li Fenggu's chest, piercing right through his body, while Lin Lei still clutched a beating heart in his hand. The next second, blood splattered everywhere as the heart was crushed into countless fragments. Li Fengu's body completely lost its vitality, and Lin Lei tossed it to the ground like trash. Before acquiring the Ninefold Thunder Force, he might have had to expend considerable effort to deal with Li Fengu. But now, let alone a peak first-tier martial artist, he could even contend with a second-tier martial artist. With Li Fengu's death, the crowd, who had been trembling with fear, completely relaxed, their faces filled with relief at surviving a close call. Few finally were saved. The fight between martial artists ended so quickly. Could that guy have been all show and no substance? You can try. I, a mere novice martial artist, am no match for him. But this guy, he seems to be the couple's son. What if he knows what we just did? SHH, don't let him hear us. Let's pretend nothing happened. These ordinary people, who should have been enjoying their trip, now realized the inappropriateness of their words, and a hint of fear gradually crept into their eyes. However, for Lin Lei, the safety of this group of people was far less important than that of his own parents. He quickly went to the tree, cut the rope, and helped the two to their feet. Mom and Dad, how are you? Lin Lei's eyes revealed anxiety, but thankfully, after carefully sensing their condition, he realized they didn't seem to be seriously injured. However, the effects of the medicine hadn't worn off yet, so even if Lin Zhan and Chen Fang wanted to speak, they could only gesture with their hands. Seeing this, Lin Lei didn't hesitate and picked them up. It'll be a bit bumpy later. Let's go to the Martial Arts Association now and have a doctor treat you. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Lei vanished in a flash. The weight of the two was almost imperceptible to him. After all, they were all first-tier martial artists. Lifting over 1,000 pounds was no problem for them. Hey, what do we do? After Lin Lei left, the group of passengers immediately panicked. This was the suburbs. There was no cell phone signal, and there might even be abyssal beasts outside. If they encountered them, they would have almost no power to fight back. But Lin Lei couldn't hear their words. He disappeared on the horizon in just a few seconds, leaving the group staring at each other in bewilderment. Half an hour later, Lin Lei appeared at the Hejiang City Martial Arts Association. Due to the emergency, Lin Zhan and his companion were quickly taken for treatment, leaving Lin Lei sitting in the lobby. Looking at the people coming and going, Lin Lei felt somewhat irritated. Although he had checked his parents' condition, who knew what kind of drug Li Fengu had given them? Phew. He exhaled a breath of stale air, trying to calm himself down. Although it was a weekday, the Martial Arts Association was always bustling with people. Whether it was buying elixirs, treating wounds, or having one's martial arts level assessed, these were all basic functions of the Martial Arts Association. Moreover, becoming a member of the Martial Arts Association brought numerous benefits, although the requirements for joining were far more stringent than those for joining the Demon Suppression Army. For the first 18 years of his life, his greatest fear was coming to the Martial Arts Association. Because every time his chi and blood were measured, it felt like a blow to him. Almost every time, he could see a hint of helplessness and anxiety in his parents' expressions, but even so, it didn't stop him from pursuing his dream. Tusk, a student has come to the Martial Arts Association. The students from No. 13 middle school, They're probably not even quasi-martial artists yet, right? Who knows? Anyway, I remember the top students from number 1 middle school have already broken through to the first level of martial artist. The gap between people is truly like a chasm. What do you think he's doing here? Is he planning to discuss with the Martial Arts Association about helping them cheat during the martial arts exam? Very likely. After all, we both know what kind of people the students from number 13 middle school are. The crowd looked at Lin Lei sitting in the chair and immediately began to whisper among themselves. In their eyes, how much strength could an 18-year-old boy possibly have? Not to mention, he came from the notoriously bad number 13 middle school. However, Lin Lei ignored these comments. He slowly got up, intending to ask the doctor about his parents' injuries, but just then he heard a voice behind him. Lin Lei. The voice was filled with anger and resentment, as if it wanted to tear him apart. Turn around and saw Huang Chusheng gritting his teeth. Although there were no visible injuries, his face was pale and he exuded weakness. Oh, it's my fragile son. Why are you out today? Aren't you going to stay in bed? Lin Lei snorted coldly, his face still showing disdain. He never had a good impression of guys who relied on squeezing resources from others to break through. Huang Chusheng was like that, and so was Li Fenggu. You. Huang Chusheng's face immediately turned a sickly red. This trash he always looked down on not only beat him to the hospital last time, but now dared to mock him. It was practically a direct challenge. What about you? You, Huang Chusheng, think you're confident you can become a first-tier martial artist. However, Lin Lei wasn't going to let him off the hook, and immediately retorted with a sarcastic remark. Instantly, everyone around was attracted by the two's actions and stopped to look. They didn't know what connection Lin Lei and Huang Chusheng had, but since they were arguing, there was no reason not to watch. Heth, even if you take medicine and injure me, you, Lin Lei, can never become a first-tier martial artist. My injuries have almost fully healed. Becoming a first-tier martial artist in the martial arts exam is a sure thing. Speaking of himself, Huang Chusheng's face showed a hint of arrogance. After all, at number 1 middle school, besides the very top students, he was already considered part of the first tier. However, before Lin Lei could speak, the surrounding group immediately started to jeer and cheer. Quick, measure their qi and blood. I want to see if there's really a huge difference between the students of number 13 middle school and number 1 middle school. Exactly, what's the use of just arguing? Just measure their qi and blood. I'll go get the surveyor, you guys wait. Smiles filled the faces of the crowd, some even going straight into the office, ready to have the surveyor come out and conduct the on-the-spot inspection. After all, among martial artists, what other means are there to gain respect besides strength? What good is money? On the battlefield, money can't buy a life. Soon, a surveyor came running out carrying his instruments. 13th middle school wants to provoke our first middle school. I'd like to see who's so bold. This man frowned, his face showing impatience. Seeing him, Huang Chusheng couldn't help but feel pleasantly surprised. This was Yang Wei, a senior from first middle school, with whom he had a good relationship. If it were anyone else measuring his qi and blood, he'd be a little worried. But if it were Yang Wei, he could take this opportunity to deflate Lin Lei's arrogance. What, Lin Lei, you dare to compete with me? Huang Chusheng glared at Lin Lei, his face radiating confidence. Today he was going to trample Lin Lei's face in the dirt and thoroughly humiliate him. Looking at that punchable face, Lin Lei couldn't help but chuckle. He'd never seen anyone so eager to be humiliated. Lin Lei, do you dare to compete with me? Huang Chusheng wore a confident smile. Although he didn't know why he had been ambushed and seriously injured by Lin Lei last time, he had learned his lesson. Besides, he was already ahead of Lin Lei. Surely he couldn't be overtaken in just a few days. No way. Surely a quasi-martial artist with 70 to 80 qi and blood points couldn't possibly be surpassed by trash with only 15 qi and blood points in just a few days. Heth, competing is of course fine. But what's the point of competing if there's no benefit? Lin Lei's face showed a mocking expression. He knew his own strength, of course. While crushing Huang Chusheng was a piece of cake, the other party had taken so many students' qi and blood pills, he had to get some interest back first. Seeing that Lin Lei actually dared to agree, Huang Chusheng felt something was amiss, but he couldn't refuse right now. Firstly, he was angry, and secondly, since he had made such a bold statement to Lin Lei in front of everyone, he couldn't back down first. Fine, you said it. Huang Chusheng gritted his teeth, thinking that his strength should theoretically crush Lin Lei's, and thus agreed. He pulled a card from his mouth and threw it directly in front of Lin Lei. There's 50,000 yuan in here. If I lose, it's yours. If you lose, I don't want anything else. Just kneel down and call me daddy, and I'll let you go. At this moment, Huang Chusheng's face was filled with disdain. It was as if Lin Lei was nothing more than trash he could easily defeat. However, seeing the other's expression, Lin Lei simply smiled. Since that's the case, let's begin. He naturally had complete confidence in his own strength. Although he was just a nobody among the martial artists of the entire Great Xia Kingdom, he was confident that he could rank in the top 3 among high school seniors, especially in Hejiang City. Seeing Lin Lei agree, the onlookers immediately showed delight. It wasn't because they wanted to see him make a fool of himself, but because they were genuinely curious about what Lin Lei, as a student of No. 13 middle school, had to offer to compete with a student from number 1 middle school. But Yang Wei, seeing this situation, couldn't help but feel a little worried. As Huang Chusheng's attending physician, he naturally knew the approximate level of the other party's strength. After 2 days of intensive treatment, Huang Chusheng's health, at his peak, would likely have over 90 points of qi and blood. Although this was already quite strong for a senior high school student, Lin Lei's confident attitude made him suspicious. "It's nothing, senior brother, just measure me." Huang Chusheng was seething inside. Even if he knew there might be a trap, he didn't bother to think about it anymore. Seeing his decisiveness, Yang Wei could only nod. "Since that's the case, then I'll begin the measurement." With that, he took out a device from behind him, unfolded it, and directly enveloped Huang Chusheng inside. Shortly afterward, everyone saw the device begin scanning Huang Chusheng's body. Basic qi and blood 60, peak qi and blood 95. As the instrument was turned on, Huang Chusheng's smile appeared before everyone. A peak qi and blood of 95 means that as long as he doubles his training, he definitely has a chance to break through to become a first-level martial artist before the martial arts exam. Impressive! A high school senior can actually reach this level. As expected of students from number 1 high school, any one of them is a dragon among men. I'm even more curious now, what will this kid from No. 13 high school use to fight back? Taking medicine on the spot is definitely impossible. With so many of us watching, he can't possibly cheat. Just thinking about him kneeling down and calling me father makes me want to laugh. Looking at Huang Chusheng's qi and blood scores, smiles appeared on everyone's faces. However, Lin Lei glanced at them, a slight smirk playing on his lips. "Let's begin." He calmly stepped into the machine, immediately feeling some kind of energy stimulating his body to activate his qi and blood. But the instant that energy touched him, his qi and blood suddenly erupted, as if sensing a threat. The next second after his qi and blood reacted, the energy vanished, and Lin Lei slowly stepped out of the machine. Basic qi and blood 128 points, peak qi and blood 320 points. Congratulations on breaking through to the first rank of martial artist. The machine's cold voice slowly spread, shaking everyone so much that their jaws could fit a fist. 320 points of peak qi and blood. This isn't just the initial stage of the first rank. This is already considered a mid to late stage first-rank martial artist. Moreover, qi and blood only represent a martial artist's realm. If Lin Lei were to test his combat power, it would probably be even more terrifying. This kid is terrifyingly powerful. No. 13 Middle School has gone a huge bargain. Holy crap, this student from number 13 Middle School is a sensation. He completely overshadows all the students from No. 1 Middle School. Such terrifying talent is probably a once-in-a-century occurrence in Hejiang City. The silence was broken by gasps of astonishment, and the crowd immediately began a heated discussion. They didn't care about winning or losing, but they were incredibly surprised by the result. Because no matter how you looked at it, Lin Lei had absolutely no chance of winning. "I'll take the money. Remember to come find me next time there's something like this." Lin Lei glanced at Huang Chusheng, then flicked the card into his hand. Hearing this, Huang Chusheng instantly turned red with anger, but didn't refute it at all. Losing is losing, especially in the most direct blood and qi test. He couldn't even refute it. "By the way, don't call me Dad next time you bet. Your dad, Huang Weijun, forced me away just to withhold blood and qi pills for your cultivation, didn't he? Tell him I, Lin Lei, will definitely repay you handsomely in the future." Lin Lei's voice came, his tone laced with murderous intent, and as his words fell, the onlookers, who had been watching the drama unfold, widened their eyes in astonishment. So there was this connection all along. No wonder that boy named Lin Lei was at number 13 Middle School. He was forced out. Instantly, everyone turned their attention to Huang Chusheng, wanting to hear his explanation. However, Huang Chusheng's composure had already crumbled. Seeing everyone staring at him, he instantly lost his composure. "It wasn't me. My dad didn't do it. He was acting recklessly. He took drugs for a test. How could I possibly lose to this good-for-nothing? It must be fake." Huang Chusheng gritted his teeth, completely unable to accept the situation. Seeing the situation was turning against him, Yang Wei could only forcibly pull Huang Chusheng into his office. Everyone immediately understood what was going on. Huang Weijun from number 1 Middle School is definitely in big trouble. Meanwhile, in the crowd, a resolute-faced old man stroked his chin, a meaningful smile on his face. Interesting, very interesting. The little guy I've been looking for is right here. Soon, Lin Jan and Chen Fang emerged from the examination room. Although their voices were still a little hoarse, they were finally able to speak. Lin Lei, seeing this, felt relieved. After paying the fee, he took his parents home. However, once home, he found that the feeling of being watched had completely disappeared. It seems it was most likely Li Fenggu's doing. He stroked his chin, already knowing that it was probably Li Fenggu's doing. But now that Li Fenggu was dead, there was no need for him to dwell on it anymore. After settling his parents in, he went straight back to school the next day. With only a few days left to prepare for the martial arts examination, although he didn't need to attend classes, he wanted to go with the principal to the Abyss Rift to kill more magical beasts. After all, killing magical beasts not only allows one to absorb their life force, but also yields materials, making it an excellent way to make money. However, upon arriving at the school, Lin Lei found Principal Qin Ming standing anxiously at the entrance. "Principal, what's wrong?" Seeing Qin Ming's anxious appearance, Lin Lei immediately knew that something terrible must have happened. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible for this second-tier martial artist to be so worried. Seeing Lin Lei approach, Qin Ming quickly walked over. "Quick, come with me." He was like a drowning man grasping at a straw, becoming incredibly excited, his face no longer showing any anxiety. Looking at Qin Ming like this, Lin Lei, though puzzled, still stood beside him. After all, for a second-tier martial artist to be so nervous, it must be no small matter. Shortly afterward, several modified cars slowly drove up, and more than a dozen fully armed martial artists quickly got out, their eyes filled with vigilance. Seeing this scene, Lin Lei immediately understood why the principal was so nervous. It was because of the identity of the newcomers. Just looking at this setup, the other party was probably no ordinary leader. "Hee, little Chin, long time no see." A tall, upright old man stepped out of the car, a kind smile on his face, but the glint of authority in his eyes told Lin Lei that this man was definitely not someone to be trifled with. "Old Chen, please come in." Seeing the man, Qin Ming greeted him with a beaming smile, Lin Lei following behind him, his expression calm and fearless. Seeing this, Elder Chen raised an eyebrow. "And this is Lin Lei, the student who killed the fanged rat in the Abyss Rift." Qin Ming quickly explained, afraid that Lin Lei might offend him. He knew all too well the identity of the man before him. As the only general stationed in Hejiang City, Chen Pajan's power was even greater than that of the mayor. The fact that the man had inquired about Lin Lei's situation yesterday clearly indicated that he already knew about what happened in the Abyss Rift. Moreover, this year's martial arts exam was completely different from previous years. It would be best if Lin Lei could latch onto him. His future would surely be bright. "Oh, it's Lin Lei. Come on, let's go together." With that, Chen Pajan gave a meaningful smile and slowly walked into the campus. Qin Ming hurriedly followed, while Lin Lei frowned. Although he didn't know why, he felt a strange familiarity with old Chen, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Well, let's see what he's planning to do. Lin Lei shook his head and followed the two into the principal's office. The three sat down, guarded by martial artists. Chen Pajan sat directly in the main seat. He looked at Lin Lei, his eyes revealing undisguised admiration. "Little Qin, this old codger came here today with only one thing on my mind." Chen Pajan got straight to the point. Although he was speaking to Qin Ming, all three knew that this matter was probably related to Lin Lei. Lin Lei, as the person involved, was somewhat confused. He didn't know the other party's identity, but judging from Qin Ming's expression, he knew he had underestimated the other party's status. "Elder Chen, please speak." Qin Ming nodded in response, his gaze also falling on Lin Lei. Seeing this, Lin Lei sat up straight. Lin Lei, your performance has satisfied me. I came here today specifically to understand the situation. I am Chen Pajan, in charge of commanding the Demon Suppression Army of Hejiang City, and also in charge of the reform of this martial arts examination. Originally, I didn't have much confidence in reforming the examination. After all, you all know the situation in Hejiang City. But Lin Lei, your appearance has given me hope. Hejiang City needs a young hero to support this exam reform. Are you willing? Having said that, Chen Pajan looked intently at Lin Lei. He was confident that he had some reputation in Hejiang City, at least a figure of some importance. He believed that if he could humble himself to ask Lin Lei, a high school student, the latter should be trembling with fear and agree. However, upon hearing this, Lin Lei smiled and stroked his chin. He had naturally heard of Chen Pajan. In fact, he knew him intimately. Not only did Chen Pajan lead the demon suppression army, but he was also the first mayor of Hejiang City, holding a revered position in the hearts of everyone in the city. But so what? Chen Pajan now needed his help. This meant that Lin Lei wasn't a simple person, he was at least somewhat valuable, so he couldn't just agree to it casually. At that moment, the system in his mind suddenly popped up. Task issued. Be a trendsetter. With the education system undergoing reforms, as a middle-aged martial artist, you might not be able to graduate. Those second- and third-tier martial artists are formidable opponents, but to continue learning and growing, you must make a name for yourself in this competition. Task reward explosive power pill. Increases your strength by 1.5 times. Seeing this task, Lin Lei was instantly dumbfounded. Second- and third-tier martial artists? Are you kidding me? Reaching first-tier martial artist status in high school is already considered exceptional. However, after thinking about it, the system's timeline was 20 years in the future. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that his classmates were all second- or third-tier martial artists. Since that's the case, then I'll have to give them a good beating. He smiled faintly, then looked at Chen Pajan. Qin Ming was already a little nervous. Lin Lei hadn't agreed yet, and he could sense that Chen Pajan was getting impatient. After all, as a general, he hated indecisiveness the most. However, thankfully, Lin Lei spoke calmly. Elder Chen, what can I gain? Hearing this, Chen Pajan and Qin Ming exchanged a glance, and both breathed a sigh of relief. They weren't afraid of Lin Lei making demands. What they feared most was a flat refusal. After all, it concerned the reform of the martial artist examination. This is something only Lin Lei can handle. The others are far from qualified. Heh, good lad, you actually dare to make demands of me. Chen Pajan smiled, then raised a finger. First, you must get first place in the martial arts grand examination, and I can give you the opportunity to join the demon suppression army and receive full training. Second, break through to the second-tier martial artist before September, and I will pave the way for your future advancement. Third, the Martial Arts Association is currently recruiting in the demon suppression army. If you can achieve the above 2 points, I will recommend you to the Martial Arts Association. As long as you win the martial arts grand exam, I'll fulfill all 3 conditions at once. After Chen Pajan finished speaking, the scene fell into a deathly silence, with only the sound of their breathing audible. Qin Ming was incredibly nervous at this moment. His biggest fear was that Lin Lei wouldn't understand the value of this opportunity and would refuse outright. This was an opportunity to go to the Demon Suppression Army and the Martial Arts Association. Even if it weren't for Lin Lei, even Qin Ming, who was already a second-tier martial artist, would have wanted to agree immediately. With the support of both the military and the Martial Arts Association, there would be absolutely no obstacles ahead, whether he joined the military or took a position in the Martial Arts Association. You must agree. Qin Ming was so nervous that sweat dripped down his face and his body trembled uncontrollably. However, Lin Lei's face showed no anxiety. Instead, he appeared thoughtful. In fact, he knew the conditions offered were already quite generous, but if he agreed so easily, the other party might think he was someone who could be driven by reward. Therefore, after feigning contemplation, seeing that the two were becoming impatient, Lin Lei readily spoke. General Chen's kindness is truly appreciated. I, Lin Lei, will certainly not fail in my duty. Hearing his reply, Chen Pajan and Qin Ming breathed a sigh of relief. If Lin Lei hadn't agreed, finding someone else would have been difficult. After all, a high school student capable of tearing apart a first-tier magical beast with their bare hands is rare, not only in Hejiang City, but even in the entire southern Xinjiang province. That would be best. The martial arts exam begins the day after tomorrow. There will be intensive training in the days leading up to it to help students catch up. After 3 days of intensive training, you can officially enter the Abyss Rift to hunt magical beasts. Good luck! Having achieved his goal, Chen Pajan didn't linger. After giving some instructions, he turned and left. After the general left, Qin Ming finally breathed a sigh of relief. He turned to Lin Lei, his eyes filled with relief and lingering fear. I was really afraid you would refuse. Don't be so presumptuous about this kind of thing. Seeing this, Lin Lei smiled but didn't explain. I'll probably encounter this kind of thing many times in the future. If I offer too low a price, my starting point will be greatly reduced. Since that's the case, go back and cultivate diligently. Remember to come for the martial arts grand examination the day after tomorrow. Qin Ming didn't say much upon seeing this, and then began to busy himself with his work. After leaving the school, Lin Lei went straight to his dormitory. After locking the doors and windows, he sat cross-legged on the ground, holding a pill in his hand, the foundation-strengthening pill that the system had rewarded him with last time. He swallowed it in one gulp, instantly feeling his body begin to heat up. However, this feeling quickly disappeared as if it had never happened. Seeing this, Lin Lei couldn't help but chuckle. It seems my foundation is already too good. Although the foundation-strengthening pill is useful, it doesn't improve me much anymore. He currently possesses the body of a primordial demon god, and then his body was reshaped by the fire dragon body refining pill. Currently, unless a higher grade elixir is used, it will be difficult for him to achieve a significant breakthrough. Having understood this, Lin Lei stopped worrying and began cultivating the dragon elephant body refining technique. Although this technique is not as powerful as the Ninefold thunder force, it still has its own profound mysteries. 2 days passed quickly, and on the day the martial arts examination began, Lin Lei, sitting on his bed, slowly opened his eyes. His blood and qi were surging, and his skin seemed to have a faint grayish-white tinge. Although the dragon elephant body refining technique requires the blood of magical beasts for cultivation, Lin Lei discovered through his exploration over the past 2 days that even without magical beast blood, the technique could still be activated. Only the cultivation progress was significantly slower. Few tilde if I test my blood and qi again, my peak blood and qi should have broken through 400 points. One step closer to becoming a second-tier martial artist. He let out a long breath, then suddenly threw a powerful punch. This time, it was so fast it was invisible, and only after the fist stopped did a faint sonic boom resound. This was a sign of extreme control over his own qi and blood, meaning Lin Lei could perfectly control every part of his body. The martial arts grand exam is about to begin. Glancing at the clock, Lin Lei realized it was already 6 in the morning, so he hurried to the training ground. He found many students already standing there, and the instructors from the Demon Suppression Army had also arrived long ago. However, looking at these instructors, Lin Lei couldn't help but frown slightly. It wasn't a matter of their identities, but rather that he sensed there were quite a few oddballs among them. After all, the way they looked at his students was very fierce, as if they had found someone to bully. It seems not everyone in the Demon Suppression Army is a good person. Lin Lei stood in the ranks, already somewhat wary of the Demon Suppression Army instructors. In fact, his wariness wasn't unfounded. After all, while the Demon Suppression Army had the duty of guarding the abyss, not everyone within it was a paragon of virtue. Moreover, those Demon Suppression Army soldiers with potential wouldn't choose to participate in the training camp. They could easily kill more demonic beasts with that time. Therefore, the skill level of the instructors participating in the training camp couldn't be guaranteed. Additionally, the student quality at No. 13 middle school was poor, so the Demon Suppression Army didn't specifically assign their best instructors. However, Lin Lei, or rather, even Qin Ming, hadn't considered this situation, as this kind of instructor arrangement had almost become the norm. Soon, all the students at number 13 high school were gathered on the playground, many still half asleep. Attention! Just then, a shout jolted everyone awake. Lin Lei looked up and saw a young man with dyed red hair and a disgruntled expression standing at the front of the class, his gaze sweeping over each student with hostility. From today onwards, I am your instructor. My name is Zhang Hua, a peak first-tier martial artist who has single-handedly hunted 10 first-tier magical beasts. Although it was just a routine introduction, the moment his words fell, gasps of astonishment filled the air. A peak first-tier martial artist and first-tier magical beasts were practically invincible to these senior high school students. Even those aspiring martial artists who considered themselves no less capable than students from No. 1 middle school were visibly shaken. This was the suppressive power of strength. However, just as Zhang Hua was enjoying this feeling, he noticed Lin Lei's indifferent gaze, as if he didn't care about the matter at all. And for some reason, Zhang Hua could tell at a glance that this handsome young man was definitely not someone to be trifled with. At least the fierceness in his eyes was no less than that of his colleagues in the Demon Suppression Army. He was probably a prominent figure at number 13 middle school. May I ask this student's name? Interested in trying out the fist techniques I'll teach you later. Zhang Hua's gaze was fixed on Lin Lei, his ruthlessness completely undisguised. In his opinion, if he wanted to establish his authority, the best way was to use someone like this. Whether it was managing the class or pursuing his own agenda, with this kind of authority, the students would certainly be unable to refuse. Seeing Zhang Hua staring at Lin Lei, everyone turned to look, their eyes filled with relief. This unlucky transfer student had actually been targeted. It would be a perfect opportunity for them to see just how strong a peak first-tier martial artist really was. However, seeing this, Lin Lei smiled and pointed to himself, saying, "Are you sure you want me to go? Are you sure you want me to go up?" Lin Lei's face held a mocking expression. He hadn't expected Zhang Hua to immediately target him. He thought he had been very low-key. Who knew why the other party disliked him? Seeing Lin Lei's question, Zhang Hua felt much more at ease. In Zhang Hua's view, if Lin Lei truly had the strength, he should come up and spar with him properly, not ask questions here. This questioning was clearly a sign that the other party was admitting defeat. This attempt to establish authority was working. Zhang Hua was secretly delighted, but his face remained ruthless. "Come up, the instructor will personally teach you the sky-splitting fist of my demon-suppressing army." Having said that, Zhang Hua beckoned to Lin Lei. When Lin Lei didn't go up yet, the students started jeering. "This guy got expelled from number 1 middle school. Could it be because he's too weak? Who knows? I heard from my neighbor's kid that Lin Lei was expelled for stealing." Tusk, that's really interesting. Our number 13 middle school actually got a thief. No wonder, instructor, Zhang Hua deliberately chose Lin Lei. It turns out it's because of his bad record. The instructor is so handsome, I love him. In an instant, Lin Lei became the target of everyone's criticism. After someone spread the rumor about number 1 middle school, everyone stood on the moral high ground and condemned him. However, Lin Lei heard these words, but his heart remained unmoved. Why would a tiger care about the insults of ants? There was absolutely no need for him to get angry with these people. He shook his head, then slowly stepped forward. "Since the instructor is willing, then let me experience it." With that, Lin Lei stepped out of the crowd and stood in front of Zhang Hua, his eyes sweeping over Zhang Hua. Looking at those icy eyes, Zhang Hua felt as if he were being watched by some kind of demonic beast, and a trace of fear involuntarily arose in his heart. HMPH, putting on an act. As a peak first-tier martial artist, he merely snorted coldly, trying to calm his mind as much as possible. Then, a pair of eagle eyes fixed on Lin Lei. It was as if he were about to be crushed into dust. "Come on, go all out. I am, after all, a peak first-tier martial artist. I'll give you a few moves first." Zhang Hua said coldly, his body already in a defensive stance. His blood and qi surged, and he exuded a chilling aura. Seeing him like this, the students in the class admired their instructor even more. Is this what a peak first-tier martial artist is? Just his aura alone is terrifying. No wonder he's from the Demon Suppression Army, capable of hunting demonic beasts. His posture is so cool. With an instructor like this teaching us, I have a chance to pass the martial artist exam and get my preliminary martial artist certificate. Everyone looked at Zhang Hua expectantly, their faces filled with admiration. For the students of number 13 middle school, becoming a first-level martial artist is definitely a lifelong pursuit. However, Lin Lei, watching this scene, couldn't help but chuckle. He shook his hand and shouted a reminder. "Instructor, catch it." Before he finished speaking, Lin Lei instantly vanished in a blur. Boom! Before he could reappear, Everyone only saw Zhang Hua, who had been standing defensively, fly backward, crashing into the wall and unable to be pried off. And judging from his appearance, even if he wasn't seriously injured, he was definitely unconscious. Holy crap, what's going on? The instructor from the next class noticed the commotion and looked over, instantly stunned. Although Zhang Hua wasn't a good person, as a peak first-tier martial artist, he was still considered an elite member of the Demon Suppression Army in Hejiang City. But now he was unconscious. Could he have been ambushed? However, turning around, there was no one ambush him. Besides Lin Lei standing there relaxed, there was no one else. As for the students, they were completely dumbfounded, unable to believe what they were seeing. A transfer student, and supposedly one who transferred because he stole elixirs for cultivation, actually punched a Demon Suppression Army instructor flying. Is there any justice? Is there any law? Has this world gone mad? Can someone like this become a martial artist? However, Lin Lei didn't show any excitement on his face, as if he had done something very ordinary. I stopped earlier. I hope nothing bad happened. Lin Lei felt a chill run down his spine. The moment his fist touched Zhang Hua, he knew things were going to go wrong. That punch felt like hitting ceramic. He could even feel the vibrations as Zhang Hua's bones cracked. Therefore, he immediately withdrew his fist at the last second. However, now it seemed the situation was still a bit off. If he had only seriously injured Zhang Hua, that would be fine, since Chen Pajan was behind him, and he wouldn't need to worry about the consequences. But if he had killed Zhang Hua, even Chen Pajan wouldn't be able to protect him. You see, the Demon Suppression Army was directly under the highest military authority of the Great Xia Kingdom. Even if Zhang Hua had a bad reputation within the Demon Suppression Army, he was still a member. If he had really killed Zhang Hua, being arrested and imprisoned would be the least of his worries. Even with his formidable talent, he would likely face considerable punishment. Cough, 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 damn it. Just then, a commotion arose from Zhang Hua's side. He clutched his chest, slowly moving his body out of the wall. Even though he could move, his weakness was evident. The arm that had directly blocked Lin Lei's attack was completely useless. It wouldn't recover for at least 3 to 5 months. Seeing this, even Lin Lei breathed a sigh of relief. At least he wouldn't be punished. Damn it! But Zhang Hua's eyes were bloodshot, and he looked like a crazed beast. How could I possibly lose to a student like you? Damn it! You take drugs, I take drugs too. After saying this, he pulled out a pill from somewhere and prepared to put it in his mouth. However, at that moment, a figure instantly appeared on the training ground. It was none other than Chen Pajan. Slap. He immediately snatched the pill from Zhang Hua's hand, then angrily rebuked him. Is this the kind of power-breaking pill that consumes potential to gain strength? Is this how the people in the Demon Suppression Army teach you? With that, he knocked Zhang Hua unconscious without further ado and handed him over to 2 people beside him to take him away. Putting everything else aside, someone who casually consumes power-breaking pills like this absolutely cannot stay in the Demon Suppression Army. Otherwise, who knows when he might cause a major disaster. Then his gaze fell on Lin Lei, who at that moment was also looking at Chen Pajan. With this old general present, he wouldn't be punished after all. General, just now. Someone was about to report this, but Chen Pajan waved his hand. He walked straight to Lin Lei and then loudly announced, Lin Lei is someone I, Chen Pajan, have chosen. His training is entirely self-designed. If any of you instructors have any objections, come directly to me, Chen Pajan. These words stunned everyone present. A high school senior had a general standing behind him. Was this the legendary connection to the heavens? Soon, Chen Pajan left the playground, but even so, he still left a deep impression on everyone. They had only seen this general online, but this was the first time they had seen him in person, and they never expected him to be such a person. Most importantly, this big shot was actually Lin Lei's backer. No wonder he transferred from number 1 middle school to number 13 middle school. With someone like him backing him, plus his own great talent, he's bound to be a figure who stirs up trouble in the future. Perhaps the opportunity for number 13 middle school to rise has arrived. As long as Lin Lei can get a good ranking, the Hejiang City authorities will definitely not be stingy with resources. Heth, I only know that no. 1 middle school is definitely doomed. Burning such a talent, the person in charge of number 1 middle school is probably finished for life. The crowd discussed amongst themselves, but Lin Lei remained calm. Whether Chen Pajan was his backer or not didn't matter much to him, since the martial arts examination was meant to select those with exceptional talent. Therefore, regardless of whether Chen Pajan was a powerful backer or not, as long as Lin Lei was outstanding enough, he could obtain privileges that many people dreamed of. As for the instructors, they were also looking at Lin Lei with some surprise. After all, to be valued so highly by a general, they knew all too well what that meant. Let's go. However, being watched like this made Lin Lei feel uncomfortable. He walked out of the school, and the instructors didn't dare to stop him. What a joke. The general has given his word. Who dares to stop him? Do they really think they have powerful connections? After leaving school, Lin Lei went straight to the Martial Arts Association without hesitation. He first spent 50,000 yuan to buy a bucket of second-tier magical beast blood, then rented a room to cultivate. Lying in the magical beast blood, Lin Lei felt a sense of being corroded throughout his body. Even so, the dragon-elephant body refining technique made his blood and qi increasingly active. Even though his blood and qi were constantly being consumed in this corrosion, he became stronger. Awesome! A day later, Lin Lei stood up from the magical beast blood that he had completely absorbed. At this moment, his muscles were clearly defined, and his blood and qi made him look like a dormant magical beast. The dragon-elephant body refining technique had forged his body into something as hard as steel. Even standing still, he exuded a powerful aura of pressure. After breaking through, it's true that I can't perfectly control my qi and blood anymore. This kind of overt display is no good. Lin Lei looked at himself in the mirror and shook his head. Although he knew this was unavoidable, he still felt that being overtly assertive was not a good thing, especially in the martial arts examination. If he were to be overtly assertive, he would definitely be targeted by many people. Although he wasn't afraid of competing with others, it was best to avoid such trouble if possible. From now on, I'll cultivate diligently, and it would be best to be able to internalize my qi and blood. Lin Lei muttered to himself, then returned to the school to begin his solo cultivation. Although the Martial Arts Association's training room was quite good, but 1,000 coins a day isn't unaffordable for Lin Lei, but it's best to save money. Entering the Abyss Rift will cost money later, and his parents' poor health will also require funds. Until he's financially independent, it's best to save as much as possible. 2 days passed quickly. Sitting in his room, Lin Lei's face was solemn. His blood and energy were becoming increasingly vigorous, but it seemed to have reached a limit. No matter how much he cultivated, his blood and energy seemed stuck, unable to advance any further. Could it be that I've reached a bottleneck? Lin Lei clenched his fist, his brows slightly furrowed. If he was already a peak first-tier martial artist, then the next thing to consider was how to break through to the second tier. Although his foundation was solid, this also made breakthroughs more difficult. Therefore, if he wanted to break through, he could only consider taking it slowly. Well, a peak first-tier martial artist should be able to handle the martial arts exam without any problems. He nodded and then headed directly to the training ground. It was the time when the students were gathering, so the short road was unusually congested. However, as soon as Lin Lei came out, a clearing suddenly appeared around him. Holy crap, it's that killing god. One punch and he killed the instructor? Is this really a student from our number 13 middle school? He was expelled from number 1 middle school. The leaders are laughing their heads off. Indeed, the principal of No. 1 middle school is probably going crazy. The students, seeing Lin Lei appear, immediately parted to make way for him, fearing he might target them. A strong person is always given way wherever they go. If they were still that weakling with only 15 qi and blood, who would even give them a second glance? Thinking this, Lin Lei didn't hesitate and walked straight ahead. The students who noticed Lin Lei quickly made way, not daring to provoke this killing god who had defeated the instructor. After all, their strength was practically chasm compared to Lin Lei's, and judging from yesterday's events, even defeating Lin Lei would almost be impossible without more than 10 first-tier martial artists working together. Soon, Lin Lei arrived at his classroom. Although he simply stood there, many students stood behind him, not daring to block his view. Seeing this, Lin Lei could only smile and shake his head. This world truly is all about strength. Shortly afterward, everyone had assembled. The head teacher, Liu Lan, stood on the platform, her gaze solemnly sweeping over everyone, then pausing briefly on Lin Lei. She couldn't believe that the little guy with only 15 health points had actually become such a remarkable individual. However, she quickly composed herself and said in a low voice, "Dear students, the 3-day training camp has been successfully completed. Next, you will need to go to the Abyss Rift to hunt monsters and earn points. Only by reaching 5 points will you be considered qualified to graduate. Furthermore, in this martial arts grand examination, the Demon Suppression Army and the Martial Arts Association have jointly established the Hejiang City Genius Ranking. The higher your points, the higher your ranking on the list. After the martial arts grand examination, incredibly generous prizes will be awarded. The top 3 students will even receive a 3rd-tier martial skill and become prospective members of the Demon Suppression Army." These words instantly caused an uproar throughout the hall. Although the students of No. 13 middle school weren't particularly outstanding, the sheer scale of the reward still made them all feel incredibly excited. This is joining the Demon Suppression Army. Even as a prospective member, it's already an excellent choice for many, and once they become full members, they can practically live a life of comfort. Not to mention the 3rd-tier martial skill they can obtain. Once they acquire such a skill, many will likely be able to defeat opponents slightly stronger than themselves. However, Lin Lei raised an eyebrow after hearing Liu Lan's words. The Demon Suppression Army, and as a prospective member at that. This treatment was far inferior to the conditions Chen Pajan had offered him. Seeing everyone's reaction, Liu Lan's face showed great satisfaction. This was exactly the effect she wanted, to maximize everyone's fighting spirit. Although this feeling of boiling blood wouldn't make them stronger, if everyone maintained this drive, perhaps they might achieve a breakthrough. In that case, let's set off for the Abyss Rift. With Liu Lan's command, all the students immediately headed towards the Abyss Rift with anticipation. However, Lin Lei believed that this excitement would only last a short time. Once they truly witnessed the terror of the magical beasts, they would probably be so scared they'd wet their pants. After all, most of them weren't even quasi-martial artists, and they had never seen the ferocity of magical beasts before. Even if they could team up to challenge them, there was no way to bridge the gap in strength. For most people, the monsters are just those corpses on TV, easy prey. Once we get there, even the fanged rats will probably give them trouble. Looking at the approaching Demon Suppression Army's encampment, Lin Lei smiled faintly. "I also want to freely enter the Abyss Rift, but the problem is I'm a high school student. Only after passing the martial arts grand exam and obtaining my graduation certificate, and then getting 1st-tier martial artist certification from the Martial Arts Association, can I freely enter the Abyss Rift. However, this whole process will take at least half a month. Am I just going to waste it like this? Besides, each time I enter the Abyss Rift, I have to pay an entrance fee, and a portion of the monsters I hunt also needs to be handed over. Looking at it this way, it seems that being a free martial artist really doesn't make much money." Walking on the road to the Abyss Rift, Lin Lei stroked his chin. He was currently short of money, and his parents' health required a huge sum for treatment, so naturally, he wanted to save every penny he could. However, he didn't have any other way to earn money, and Elder Chen Pajan hadn't offered any monetary reward. His only opportunity to make money was the martial arts grand examination. "Wait, I have an idea." Suddenly, Lin Lei seemed to notice something. The martial arts grand examination awarded points based on the recorded monster corpses. Each Tier 1 monster was worth 5 points, and a team could only have a maximum of 5 people. That meant a team of 5 needed to hunt 5 Tier 1 monsters to advance. In that case, why don't I just sell the monster corpses? After all, these monster corpses have to be handed over. Why not just exchange the money inside? In an instant, Lin Lei felt a sudden enlightenment. There are so many ways to make money. He had truly been blinded by conventional methods before. Besides, although the students at number 13 middle school aren't of high caliber, there's no shortage of wealthy people. It's just that these guys have too little talent, so even if they pass the exam, they can only spend a lot of money to strengthen themselves. However, their talent is limited, so no matter how hard they try, they can't improve much. In the past, the martial arts exam required step-by-step testing of chi and blood, fist strength, etc., which was impossible to fake. But this time, the martial arts exam has been reformed. All that's needed is to submit the corpses of magical beasts, making it very simple. He could directly lead a team to hunt magical beasts or sell their corpses on the spot. This way, he would not only make money, but he could also absorb chi and blood through the gluttonous ring. That's killing two birds with one stone. Besides, the rules of the martial arts examination don't say it's forbidden to sell. So what I'm doing shouldn't violate the rules. Lin Lei stroked his chin and nodded. If the law doesn't prohibit it, it's permissible. Let's do it. Soon, the group arrived at the location of the Abyss Rift. Looking at the tens of meters long spatial passage, the terrifying energy emanating from it began to subtly erode the students' bodies, instantly filling the previously excited students with fear. They were, after all, inexperienced. After only a slight fright, their true nature was immediately revealed. Go in. The demon suppression army soldiers supervising the students couldn't help but sneer at the sight. The students from number 13 middle school were the last to enter and performed the worst. While the students from number 1 middle school were somewhat afraid of the spatial rift, they couldn't hide the excitement in their eyes. Judging by this, number 13 middle school would probably be at the bottom of this year's martial arts exam. As soon as the words fell, the students standing in the front row didn't dare move, as if afraid they would be swallowed by the abyss rift. Seeing this person dawdling, Liu Lan was about to speak when she saw Lin Lei push through the crowd and step forward. Stop dawdling, goodbye everyone. He waved with a smile, then stepped into the spatial rift. He didn't want to waste time in this place. Let's hurry up and finish the martial arts exam first. Instantly, the surrounding scenery changed, and Lin Lei found himself back at the martial arts camp he had seen before. However, it had clearly been thoroughly cleared. Even the land had been turned over, showing just how much Chen Pajan valued this martial arts exam. But the more important it was, the greater the potential profit for him. After all, this wasn't just about number 13 middle school. More than 10 other high schools were also here. Within the spatial rift, once he finished dealing with no 13 middle school, he could still do business with the other high schools. As for achieving a ranking, who could kill monsters as fast as him? If he truly had that ability, Chen Pajan wouldn't have needed his help. Everyone, put on your devices. The time limit for this martial arts exam is 1 day. At least 5 points are required within this day. Now, the martial arts examination begins. With the examiner's command. Excited shouts from the students echoed through the abyss rift. Some highly skilled students rushed out instantly, not wanting to waste time forming teams. The other students also immediately formed teams and began hunting magical beasts together. Lin Lei, on the other hand, leisurely walked in a certain direction, the opposite of the direction he had used to hunt the fanged rats last time. Anyway, I've already cleared out most of the magical beasts there last time. If I squeeze in again, it will probably be difficult to find suitable prey. As the students gradually disappeared, Chen Pajan's figure appeared in the martial arts camp. He narrowed his eyes. His gaze was fixed intently on the distance. Have all the magical beasts around been cleared out? Yes, only first-tier magical beasts remain within 100 miles. The demon suppression army soldiers just completed their testing this morning and found no trace of second-tier magical beasts. The secretary beside him quickly spoke up. Having learned from the previous experience, he dared not relax on any detail. Seeing him like this, Chen Pajan slowly nodded. Now that everything has been prepared, it all depends on the students' performance. Whether they are dragons or worms, we'll find out after today. However, he still looked in Lin Lei's direction with some worry, muttering to himself, I just wonder what this brat can achieve. I hope you won't disappoint me. Under Chen Pajan's watchful gaze, Lin Lei's figure walked further and further away, finally disappearing from their sight. At this moment, Lin Lei quickly ran towards the distance. Having learned from his previous experience, he knew he didn't need to waste time in this place. After all, the surrounding area had undoubtedly been cleared countless times. If he wanted to hunt magical beasts, it was best to head further away. Otherwise, he would only be wasting his time. Wait, there's the aura of a magical beast here. After running a few kilometers, Lin Lei sniffed, seemingly sensing something. Looking down, he saw the ground covered with countless tiny holes, each covered with fine spider silk, looking quite unusual. This seems to be the web of a shadow spider. Lin Lei's gaze was fixed on the spider silk. Immediately, the image of an 8-legged spider, the size of a millstone with patterns on its head, flashed into his mind. This shadow spider doesn't rely on silk to hunt. It simply uses the silk's reconnaissance properties to detect enemy movements. This allows it to quickly locate its prey and then kill it with its incredibly sharp mandibles and lightning-fast movements. While this magical beast is relatively weak in a one-on-one situation, if it enters its territory and is ambushed, even a peak first-tier martial artist will suffer greatly. It's just a pity it encountered me. Otherwise, you really would have had to ambush 1 or 2 people to take it down. Lin Lei's eyes darted around, and an idea immediately formed in his mind. Shadow spiders like to chase their prey, right? Then he'll pretend to be a lost magical beast, creating the illusion of panic and aimlessness. When the shadow spider appears, he'll strike it dead in one blow. Soon, Lin Lei squeezed a drop of blood from his finger and began to move erratically along the spider's silk. As he moved, the silk began to pulsate, and a mound of earth in one spot rose slightly, as if something was hiding underneath. Seeing this, Lin Lei silently ran towards the mound, but his movements remained erratic, like prey struggling in its death throes. He was panting heavily, his face covered in a light sheen of sweat. Seeing Lin Lei's state, the shadow spider was immediately filled with predatory gleam, its 6 small eyes flashing with bloodlust. It extended its claws, waiting for its prey to approach. Seeing this, Lin Lei twisted his ankle and lunged forward. At that moment, the shadow spider sprang into action. The 2 sharp forelimbs began to swing incessantly, like the scythe of death, intent on killing Lin Lei completely. But just as the forelimbs were about to touch Lin Lei, it suddenly felt as if it were being restrained by something. Lin Lei gripped its forelimbs with both hands, a smug look on his face. Hee, I finally managed to trick you. Die. Lin Lei suddenly exerted force with his arms, and a surge of immense blood energy instantly boiled within his body. A force almost capable of moving mountains and splitting rocks came through, actually tearing off the shadow spider's forelimb. Squeak! Instantly, the shadow spider let out a sharp roar, its voice filled with pain and fear. It never imagined that it, a top-tier first-tier magical beast, would be so severely injured by something that looked like prey. And judging from the other party's appearance, it seemed quite casual. In this life-or-death crisis, the shadow spider immediately began to run away. Since it couldn't win, it would use its speed advantage to escape. Where do you think you're going? Seeing the shadow spider turn to run, Lin Lei wasn't about to give it the chance. He simply flicked his toe and hooked a fist-sized rock. Then, the veins in his right hand, holding the rock, bulged and he threw it forward. Whoosh, the rock made a whooshing sound as it struck the shadow spider's head, which was 200 or 300 meters away. Squeak tilde. The shadow spider let out a mournful howl. Though its eyes were filled with a desperate desire to live, its life force began to drain away, and it finally collapsed to the ground, becoming a corpse. Seeing this, Lin Lei quickly stepped forward and picked it up. Not a bad magical beast, but it's a pity it ran into me. A shadow spider the size of a millstone is already considered a peak-level first-tier magical beast. If other students encountered it, they would probably struggle to deal with it, but unfortunately, it met him and could only accept its fate. Looking at the magical beast in his hands, Lin Lei could only carry it back. If I kill one magical beast and then go back, this efficiency is simply too low. No, I need a suitable storage item. Otherwise, how many magical beasts can I kill in a day? On the way, Lin Lei couldn't help but purse his lips. As he hurried back, Chen Pajan felt somewhat melancholy. This martial arts exam reform was something he had spearheaded. If it went well, it could be promoted throughout the province and even the country, and his future advancement wouldn't be impossible. But the problem was, the students in Hejiang City weren't considered high-achieving in southern Xinjiang province. If a large-scale death incident occurred, he'd probably be out of a job. I hope those top students can give me a surprise. Chen Pajan harbored a sliver of hope. Although he had complete faith in Lin Lei, the problem was that this was a spatial rift. If some special circumstances arose, these students might face mortal danger. and only half an hour has passed. How could any students possibly return? This round trip will take who knows how much time, not to mention the need to hunt magical beasts. Looking at the horizon, Chen Pajan couldn't help but sigh. He was really delusional, expecting someone to bring back magical beasts so quickly. If a certain classmate truly possessed such combat power, even Lin Lei probably wouldn't be able to defeat him reliably, right? Chen Pajan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He hadn't slept for days because of this matter. Now he could finally rest for a few hours before people started returning. However, at that moment, he suddenly stopped. His secretary, caught off guard, almost bumped into him. At that moment, Chen Pajan ignored her, his gaze fixed on the horizon. A figure was rapidly approaching. He seemed to be carrying something the size of a millstone. Old Chen this. The secretary turned around, instantly speechless with astonishment. What was going on? Someone had brought something back. Seeing Chen Pajan's anxious gaze, he finally realized a student had probably successfully hunted a magical beast. Under Chen Pajan's watchful gaze, Lin Lei's figure, carrying the shadow spider, drew closer and closer, arriving at the martial arts camp in just a few minutes. The teacher who was tallying the scores hadn't even arrived yet. After all, no one could have imagined that someone could hunt a magical beast in half an hour and even bring it back. Old Chen, you've lived up to expectations. Seeing Chen Pajan and the secretary standing there, Lin Lei slowly walked over. A confident smile still lingered on his face. After speaking, Chen Pajan's expression turned solemn. He turned to his secretary and said, "Go and call over a teacher who keeps track of scores. Tell him to keep a close eye on Lin Lei. I'd like to know what surprise this kid has in store for me. Make sure he goes with Lin Lei." The secretary, upon hearing this, was filled with turbulent emotions. Having a teacher specifically assigned to tally a student's scores, this was perhaps the most absurd thing in history. But to him, it seemed perfectly reasonable. Is Lin Lei, who could kill a peak-level first-tier magical beast in half an hour, worthy of this treatment? Absolutely. If it weren't for the martial arts exam, assigning several second-tier martial artists to escort him wouldn't be a problem at all. Soon, a middle-aged man wearing glasses with a somewhat dull gaze approached, his face showing displeasure. "General, what brings you here?" "You see, researching martial artists and magical beasts is of paramount importance. Many projects cannot function without me." The middle-aged man pushed up his glasses with some dissatisfaction, his tone seemingly showing no regard for Chen Pajan. Lin Lei, seeing this, couldn't help but feel curious. Who was this person, daring to speak to Chen Pajan like that? And judging from his words, he was likely a high-ranking researcher. Chen Pajan and his secretary seemed already familiar with the man's tone, and instead of reprimanding him, they said amiably, "Lin Lei, this is Chu Quang, one of the most outstanding researchers in Hejiang City. This time, I had him accompany you not only to record your scores, but also because I hope you can cooperate with his research. If there are any new discoveries, I can raise the conditions I promised you even further." Chen Pajan's tone was solemn, his gaze fixed intently on Lin Lei. Hearing this, Lin Lei frowned. His biggest fear was that someone would discover the system. If it was just recording scores, that would be fine, but if they wanted him to cooperate in research, that would be unacceptable. However, at that moment, the system's voice popped into his mind. "Research, series of missions has been issued. Remember the buck-toothed rats you first encountered in the Abyss Rift? You were 18 then, and to prepare for the martial arts examination, you took banned drugs, but even with all your might, you couldn't defeat them. Now, although 20 years have passed, you still remember them. This time, you must annihilate them all in front of Chu Quang, a top expert in martial arts research. Mission Reward Storage Bead, a storage tool that creates its own world. Put everything you want to hide into it." Upon seeing the mission, Lin Lei couldn't help but twitch his lips. It seems he has no choice but to let Chu Quang come along, even if he doesn't want to. For the sake of the treasure pearl, he has to agree. Besides, they're just fanged rats. Dealing with them is a piece of cake for him, isn't it? Lin Lei sneered inwardly. He had killed countless fanged rats before. He naturally knew how to deal with these guys. It's just one word: kill. The next second, the system displayed a map in Lin Lei's mind. Looking at the single red dot, the previously confident Lin Lei instantly fell silent. as expected of a system that arrived 20 years early. He thought there would be hundreds of fanged rats, but he didn't expect there to be only one. In other words, killing this fanged rat would be equivalent to avenging himself. Thinking this, he nodded. In that case, I'll trouble Senior Chu Quang. As for Chu Quang, although he was quite confused by Chen Pajan's arrangement, he noticed the shadow spider's corpse lying next to Lin Lei and instantly understood what was going on. He guessed that this student's talent was too formidable, which was why Chen Pajan valued him so much, making him put aside his research to come and keep an eye on him. If he could learn something from him. In an instant, this thought suddenly appeared in Chu Quang's mind, taking root and sprouting like a vine. Thinking of this, he was also eager for a challenge, a glint of light flashing in his eyes as he licked his lips and said, "No trouble at all. When you encounter magical beasts, you still need to go all out." Of course, Lin Lei had no other opinions about this researcher. After all, researching martial artists was his job, and he also needed to complete the system's tasks. It was best to create a win-win situation. Seeing that the two had reached an agreement, Chen Pajan nodded in satisfaction. "Since that's the case, then you can go." Having said that, he didn't linger there but turned back to the camp to rest. If he had previously worried that this exam reform might encounter significant resistance, now with Lin Lei there, the reform would surely be implemented smoothly. Seeing Chen Pajan leave, Lin Lei turned to Chu Quang and said, "Senior Chu, shall we set off now?" "Yes." The other's expression remained calm, but Lin Lei wasn't one to care about such things. He immediately took Chu Quang's hand and raced towards the location marked on the map. Half an hour later, Lin Lei and Chu Quang finally arrived at the location marked on the map. However, looking at the desolate plain, Chu Quang's eyes turned serious. Based on his years of experience studying magical beasts, although this place looked peaceful, it definitely concealed great danger. Putting everything else aside, the fact that not a single magical beast could be seen in this area meant that either a more powerful being existed here, or a large magical beast clan resided there. Regardless of the situation, this is not a good sign. Perhaps you should reconsider. I think it's best not to provoke this place. Chu Quang adjusted his glasses, his tone unusually fluctuating. In his view, Lin Lei was just a high school senior. Even if he was strong enough to kill a shadow spider solo, he would definitely be at a disadvantage against a family of magical beasts like this. Not to mention, there were no other students to be seen here. Even if he encountered danger, it would be difficult to get help. Therefore, even if Lin Lei was powerful, Chu Quang felt it was best to give him a warning. If the other party didn't appreciate it, then he could only watch from here. Anyway, he was a researcher. Although he was a first-level martial artist, his combat strength was probably even weaker than a quasi-martial artist. "Don't worry. Leave this to me." Lin Lei smiled calmly, his face still radiating confidence. He naturally realized this place was unusual, but his target was the strangler rat from the mission. Killing it would allow him to escape unscathed. If he had the energy, he could kill a few more strangler rats to exchange for money. With this in mind, Lin Lei walked forward with a determined gaze. When he was less than 100 meters from the target on the map, he stomped his foot and shouted, "What are you hiding for? Your killers are here. The ones who will kill you are here." Lin Lei's impassioned voice echoed across the plains, lingering for a long time. Chu Quang stared in disbelief at the scene. After all, every martial artist hopes to fight a magical beast one-on-one, as this avoids being surrounded and puts them in danger. But Lin Lei is different. Why did he immediately intend to alert the magical beasts here? "Lin Lei, you." Chu Quang was about to tell Lin Lei to retreat when his expression changed, and he dodged backward. Suddenly, a section of the ground bulged out, and a huge, fanged rat emerged from underground, its small eyes coldly staring at Lin Lei and Chu Quang. Before Chu Quang could react, 70 or 80 mounds suddenly appeared ahead, and beneath them lurked hordes of buck-toothed rats. How can there be such a large pack of magical beasts? Seeing this, Chu Quang exclaimed in astonishment, completely bewildered. Logically, a buck-toothed rat family should only number between 20 and 30, as resources in any given area are limited, and the rat leader couldn't manage them all. But these 70 or 80 buck-toothed rats were 2 to 3 times the size of an ordinary buck-toothed rat family, completely beyond common sense. Could it be? In an instant, Chu Quang thought of an extreme possibility. That is, the buck-toothed rat leader was no longer a peak first-tier magical beast, but had entered the second tier. You must know, second-tier magical beasts have already begun to possess rudimentary intelligence. Managing 70 or 80 of their own kind is a piece of cake. Lin Lei, run. Chu Quang didn't dare hesitate at all, loudly reminding Lin Lei while trying to distance himself from the fanged rats. He was, after all, just a researcher. Trying to fight against so many magical beasts was simply courting death. However, Lin Lei smiled upon hearing this, then cracked his neck. "Senior Chu, don't worry, now it's time for the show." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Lei leaped into the horde of magical beasts. The gluttonous ring on his hand activated instantly, its terrifying spikes gleaming with a bloodthirsty light. Squeak! Seeing that Lin Lei didn't run away, the group of buck-toothed rats instantly went berserk. Having been repeatedly defeated by the Demon Suppression Army a few days ago, now it was finally their turn to reap the lives of human martial artists. More than 10 buck-toothed rats swarmed forward, preparing to completely trap Lin Lei in their encirclement. However, Lin Lei remained fearless in the face of danger, becoming unusually calm. Ninefold Thunder Force. With a furious roar, he gathered all his vital energy in his right hand and then unleashed a punch. Bang! The fist made intimate contact with the body of a buck-toothed rat, then pierced through the beast's body with unstoppable force. Several other buck-toothed rats behind it couldn't dodge in time and were also blasted to death by this punch. Seeing this scene, not only the buck-toothed rats, but even Chu Quang, watching from afar, was dumbfounded. What was going on? This guy was a first-tier martial artist. Killing magical beasts of the same level was like child's play, and it didn't even seem to take much effort. In Chu Quang's view, Lin Lei charged into the buck-toothed rat swarm like a war god, then killed a magical beast with a single punch. Although it didn't have the power of that initial punch, judging from Lin Lei's appearance, killing them one by one seemed to be more effortless. Record. Just as Chu Quang was stunned, Chen Pajan's instructions suddenly popped into his mind. He was instructed to follow Lin Lei and record Lin Lei's hunting of magical beasts. Instantly, Chu Quang, who had been fearful of dying here, felt all his fear vanish. Instead, he greedily watched the scene before him, taking out his recorder to start recording. For a high school student, being able to single-handedly fight a first-tier magical beast is already considered a rare genius. But someone like Lin Lei, who completely overpowered the beasts, is something that seems unheard of, not only in Hejiang City, but even in Nanjiang Province. No, even in the entire Great Xia Kingdom. Terrifying. The more Chu Quang watched, the more he felt the terrifying power of Lin Lei. Not only could he move freely among the horde of magical beasts, but more importantly, every attack was like a thunderbolt, giving his opponents no chance to struggle. This kind of strength is beyond the reach of even a second-tier martial artist, let alone a peak first-tier martial artist. Watching Lin Lei slaughter more than half of the beasts, Chu Quang finally understood why Chen Pajan had insisted he follow Lin Lei. If he didn't thoroughly study such a top-tier martial artist, he would be wasting an excellent subject of observation. In an instant, Chu Quang made up his mind. He would follow Lin Lei, even if Lin Lei prepared to leave the assessment area. Health value 498, one punch killed a fanged rat. Health value 497, a punch killed two fanged rats. Health value 499, the fanged rat's corpse was directly blasted to pieces. Chu Quang looked at the data on the recorder, and then wrote it all down on his own device. However, what shocked him most was that Lin Lei had killed 40 or 50 magical beasts, and his health value had never fallen below 490. You know, even a peak first-tier martial artist will eventually tire, yet Lin Lei has been able to fight continuously for such a long time. If it's not extraordinary talent, then it can only mean one thing: Lin Lei is still holding back. Could he be a second-tier martial artist? When this thought popped into Chu Quang's head, he was quite surprised. An 18-year-old second-tier martial artist. This is no longer just a top genius in the Great Xia Kingdom. Even in the entire world, there are only a handful of people with such terrifying talent. And these individuals have now become pillars of their respective countries. It seems I'll have to get along better with this Lin Lei in the future. Chu Quang watched Lin Lei almost kill all 70 or 80 buck-toothed rats, and this thought couldn't help but pop into his mind. Although he has a stubborn temper, but facing such a top genius, he had absolutely nothing to be proud of. Intelligence? Heh, their researchers are just trying to make martial artists stronger. As long as you're strong enough, the whole world will make way for you, not even a single country can stop you. However, Lin Lei couldn't imagine that Chu Quang was thinking so much. He was just looking at the last dozen or so buck-toothed rats, his eyes filled with joy. So many monster corpses, he could easily sell half of them. If a monster corpse sells for 10,000, no, 50,000, then this is over 1 million, wow tilde. Lin Lei was stunned by his own estimate. No wonder everyone said martial artists were rich. Now it seemed that wasn't an exaggeration, and they might even be more profitable than he had imagined. However, his joy didn't last long because the red dot on the map still hadn't disappeared. This proved that the buck-toothed rat he wanted to kill hadn't appeared yet. So what's going on? After killing the last of the buck-toothed rats, Lin Lei stood there, utterly bewildered. He had clearly killed all the buck-toothed rats, so why was the red dot still there? Could it be that this guy was cowardly and had been hiding? He stroked his chin, feeling that his guess was probably correct. Then Lin Lei went to the red dot and stomped his foot hard. Boom! A strange force cracked the ground, revealing a cave. Deep inside the cave, a 4 or 5 meter long buck-toothed rat was huddled there, its eyes filled with wariness. Beneath its belly were 3 hungry cubs. Roar! The moment it saw Lin Lei, the buck-toothed rat launched a surprise attack, its speed exceeding Lin Lei's expectations. Bang! He tried to dodge, but was still knocked away, instantly feeling as if his ribs had been broken. In the distance, Chu Quang, seeing the suddenly appearing buck-toothed rat, trembled with fear. Run. That's the second-tier magical beast, the buck-toothed rat leader. It's a second-tier magical beast. Chu Quang's voice trembled. If Lin Lei hadn't been there, he would have almost turned and run away. This is a second-tier magical beast. It would take at least 10 first-tier martial artists working together to defeat it. Moreover, according to the recorder, this buck-toothed rat leader has 1,000 health points, which only qualifies it as an early-stage second-tier magical beast, but it's still beyond Lin Lei's capabilities. Damn it, didn't the demon suppression army wipe them all out? At this moment, Chu Quang really wanted to twist the secretary's head off and use it as a football. Such a serious accident would cost anyone their head. However, Lin Lei didn't have that much time to think. He had just been knocked back 20 or 30 meters, and now he gritted his teeth and stood up. Fortunately, he had the body of a primordial demon god. Otherwise, that blow would have almost shattered his internal organs. This is truly unexpected. Lin Lei gritted his teeth, looking at the buck-toothed rat leader before him. He hadn't expected his target to be this second-tier magical beast, and even more unexpectedly, in this parallel world without a system, he had managed to escape from such a beast. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes filled with ruthlessness. Martial artists defy the heavens. This is indeed a second-tier magical beast, but it appears to have just given birth and is currently in a weakened state. If he finds the right opportunity, he might be able to kill it. Since that's the case, then let's go. Lin Lei shrugged, clenching his fists. Seeing that Lin Lei still wouldn't retreat, the leader of the buck-toothed rats roared and pounced. Its body became incredibly exaggerated during the attack. Its already obese body grew even larger, and its small eyes blazed with intense killing intent. Although it didn't know how it had been discovered, for the sake of its offspring, it had no choice but to fight desperately. Well done, Ninefold Thunder Force. Now Lin Lei had no choice but to throw a punch. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as Lin Lei's fist struck the buck-toothed rat leader. The leader didn't even break through its defenses. Its massive, fat body even generated a shockwave. However, Lin Lei knew he couldn't retreat now, so he gritted his teeth and unleashed his power once more. Ninefold Thunder Force, second form. Instantly, Lin Lei felt as if his muscles were being torn apart. Although the Ninefold Thunder Force is a powerful martial art, it causes immense damage to the martial artist's body, but for now, he could only endure it. Boom! Lin Lei didn't hold back with this punch, striking the leader of the fanged rats directly on the forehead. Even this second-tier magical beast was forced back by the terrifying force. But sensing the threat, the creature instantly activated its ferocity, gripping the ground with its claws to stop itself, its tail then whipping towards Lin Lei like a whip. Seeing the lightning-fast tail whip, Lin Lei knew he absolutely could not retreat. If he retreated, the accumulation of the Ninefold thunder force had to start all over again, and most importantly, he wasn't confident he could dodge it completely. Never mind, unleash the third move. Ninefold thunder force break. He gritted his teeth and directly activated the third move of the Ninefold thunder force. Crack! At this moment, Lin Lei even felt his bones almost breaking from the pressure of his blood and qi, and his internal organs were under immense pressure. Even with the body of a primordial demon god, he couldn't withstand this terrifying power. But now he had no choice but to fight to the death. Boom! Lin Lei and the tail whip of the buck-toothed rat leader collided, generating a force almost capable of moving a small mountain. Lin Lei was sent flying backward, blood gushing from his mouth as if it were free. The leader of the fanged rats was in even worse shape. The massive surge of energy from the third move of the Ninefold thunder force flooded its body, almost recklessly destroying its internal organs. Although it stood still, its internal organs were badly damaged, and it was now barely clinging to life. Good, 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 you rat really make me happy. The gluttonous ring in his hand emitted a burst of light, and the energy stored within surged forth, beginning to repair Lin Lei's body. Although the energy wasn't enough to fully restore Lin Lei to his peak condition, at least most of his injuries had healed, and continuing the martial arts examination would definitely not be a problem. Lin Lei assessed his injuries, then gritted his teeth and approached the leader of the fanged rats. Looking at this second-tier magical beast, he didn't hesitate. He punched the opponent squarely in the head. With a mournful howl, the buck-toothed rat leader instantly stopped breathing, its massive body resembling a mountain of flesh, incredibly conspicuous. In the distance, Chu Quang felt his worldview crumble at the sight. Having killed 70 or 80 first-tier magical beasts, he felt he was falling behind the times. But now, Lin Lei had even killed a second-tier magical beast. Although he had been injured, it was negligible compared to the gains. No need to go to the hospital. With the powerful vitality of a martial artist, he would recover in just a few days. Chu Quang walked over blankly, momentarily speechless. However, Lin Lei smiled, then sat down on the ground without any grace. Senior Chu, you should probably call someone over to take inventory. Hearing Lin Lei's words, Chu Quang finally snapped out of his daze. 70 or 80 demonic beast corpses, the two of them really couldn't carry them back. So he made a quick call to Chen Pajan and briefly explained the situation. What? Even without speakerphone, Lin Lei heard Chen Pajan's exclamation. I'm coming right away. Hastily hanging up, Chu Quang didn't bother with Lin Lei, but instead began studying the corpses of the buck-toothed rats. He hoped to find something from these corpses to determine the limits of Lin Lei's strength. Lin Lei, however, had no interest in these matters at the moment. He focused his attention on the system panel. Series of quests completed. Congratulations on obtaining the treasure bead. Series of quests Part 2 begins. Faced with your formidable strength, Chu Quang, who has dedicated his life to studying martial arts, is quite surprised. Please cooperate with his examination as much as possible. The examination results will be distributed according to the number of martial artists you have surpassed. Surpassing 70% of martial artists of the same level, top grade tier 2 Qi, and Blood Pill. Surpassing 80% of martial artists of the same level, unranked martial skill *1. Surpassing 90% of martial artists of the same level, freely selected cultivation technique *1. Unprecedented peak, freely selected absolutely loyal magical beast *1. Instantly, a pale blue pillar, ancient and ordinary-looking, had appeared at Lin Lei's waist. Lin Lei's eyes lit up with joy as he looked at the system task. A monster cub, could it be that he'll have another super fighter? Choose any magical beast at will. If I choose a 9th-tier magical beast, wouldn't I be able to roam the whole world like a tyrant? Lin Lei's face flashed with excitement. After all, although most are martial artists now, research has shown that abyssal magical beasts aren't just killing machines, they also have emotions. Some magical beast cubs brought back to Blue Star from the abyss can even be trained to recognize a master and become assistants to humanity in the fight against the abyss. However, this process is extremely complicated, and the higher the tier of the magical beast, the more deeply rooted its bloodline inheritance. Therefore, so far, the magical beast cubs that the Great Xia Kingdom can tame are only of the second-tier bloodline. Moreover, raising a magical beast cub is extremely expensive, even for a moderately well-off family. Therefore, compared to martial artists, the profession of beast tamer is only just beginning to emerge. Only a nation can support small-scale training. Once these monster corpses are dealt with, I can cooperate with Chu Quang to examine them. If we can achieve the highest level. Lin Lei licked his lips. This is a chance to obtain a 9th-tier monster. He has to seize it no matter what. Just as he was thinking this, a group of small black dots suddenly appeared on the horizon. Noticing this, Lin Lei and Chu Quang looked up and saw Chen Pajan leading more than 10 people, rapidly approaching in a flying vehicle. Even from a distance, they could still see General Chen scratching his head in frustration. Seeing this, Chu Quang stopped examining the injuries of the buck-toothed rats and quickly walked over to explain the situation. "Quick, where's Lin Lei?" However, before he could speak, Chen Pajan jumped off the still unstable aircraft, his face filled with panic. Chu Quang, too lazy to explain, pointed behind him. Following his pointing finger, Chen Pajan saw a mountain of flesh-like magical beast lying on the ground, while Lin Lei sat wearily, still smiling and greeting him. The moment he saw Lin Lei, Chen Pajan rushed forward. "How did you do that?" His gaze was serious, his face filled with doubt and earnestness. Although he knew Lin Lei's strength was terrifying, he hadn't expected that even a second-tier magical beast wouldn't be a match for Lin Lei. Such a terrifying student was probably one of a kind in the entire world. Hearing his question, Lin Lei didn't say anything, but simply stood up and scanned his surroundings. "Elder Chen, please don't tally the points for these demonic beast corpses yet. Transport them back to the martial artist camp for me first." Upon hearing this, Chen Pajan was slightly taken aback. He didn't understand why Lin Lei was going to such lengths. After all, tallying the points on site and registering them would suffice. If the information could be promptly relayed to higher levels, it might even attract the attention of some important figures. However, since the other party had his own ideas, Chen Pajan wouldn't refuse. Even he himself had to step aside when such a genius had a need. "All right." After saying this, Chen Pajan casually gave his secretary an order, and then led Lin Lei and the others back to the martial artist camp. According to Chu Quang's words, Lin Lei killed at least 70 fanged rats, as well as a second-tier fanged rat leader. If this were calculated in points, Lin Lei alone would probably have over 1,000 points. Half an hour later, everyone disembarked from the aircraft. Some students who returned to the martial arts camp were dumbfounded by the mountain of monster corpses. Holy crap, what's going on? The demon suppression army has been mobilized. Possibly, but with them hunting so many monsters, isn't this increasing the difficulty of our assessment? No, look at that monster in the back. It's definitely reached second tier. Hiss tilde a second-tier monster. It seems the demon suppression army's intervention was indeed necessary. The students returning to the martial arts camp wore expressions of lingering fear. 3 hours had passed since the start, and most had still failed to hunt any magical beasts. The mountain of corpses before them created a huge psychological letdown, leading some to wonder if they too could possess the strength to hunt second-tier magical beasts if they joined the demon suppression army. After counting all the corpses, Chen Pajan glanced at the indifferent Lin Lei and said, "The count is complete. There are 79 first-tier magical beasts in total. Adding the shadow spider you hunted at the beginning, your score is now 400 points. If we include that second-tier magical beast, your score will probably reach 2,000 points. And the other students only have a combined score of 1,000 points." Chen Pajan's voice trembled slightly. After all, he hadn't expected Lin Lei to give him such a big surprise in just 3 hours. However, Lin Lei's next move surprised him even more. Lin Lei slowly stood up and pointed to the pile of monster corpses, saying, "Old Chen, these points haven't been credited to my account. I should be able to dispose of them freely, right?" "Of course you can," Chen Pajan answered blankly, somewhat confused about what Lin Lei was planning to do. Hearing this, Lin Lei didn't speak, but instead carried the corpse of a buck-toothed rat to the group of students. Everyone, I am Lin Lei from number 13 middle school. As you can see, these are all monster corpses. Lin Lei's voice slowly drifted over, immediately puzzling everyone. They weren't blind. Naturally, one could see the pile of monster corpses. Seeing the students looking at him with puzzled expressions, Lin Lei smiled. He tossed aside the buck-toothed rat corpse he was holding and then announced loudly, "These monster corpses haven't been added to my points yet, and I've checked the rules. It doesn't seem to say that buying and selling monster corpses is prohibited. So now, 50,000 yuan per monster corpse, cash on delivery. Of course, if you think you can snatch them from me, feel free to try. I'd like to see who dares." With that, Lin Lei stomped his foot, instantly creating a deep pit in the ground. Cracks like centipedes began to spread rapidly, creating a terrifying sight. And hearing his words, Chen Pajan was also dumbfounded. He had never imagined that anyone would be auctioning off monster corpses here. This was something no one had ever dared to do before, not even in their wildest dreams. After all, martial artists were the foundation of a nation, and there were explicit regulations against it, so being killed for doing such a thing was somewhat understandable. But this time was different. None of the rules explicitly prohibited the auctioning of monster corpses. Even Chen Pajan himself had overlooked this. It was something that had become a habit. Who would think to explicitly prohibit it? "General, this." The secretary beside him hesitated, unsure of what to do. However, at that moment, a cry of surprise rang out. "You mean it's okay to buy monster corpses? I'll offer 500,000, give me 10 of them first." A fat, dark-skinned young man stepped forward. Judging from his school uniform, he was from number 12 middle school. Lin Lei immediately understood why this guy wanted to buy them. Number 12 middle school? That's a trash school on par with number 13 middle school. Trying to pass the martial arts exam at such a school is simply wishful thinking. But Lin Lei remained silent, simply taking out his payment QR code. The next second, 500,000 arrived in his account. Without further ado, Lin Lei picked up 10 magical beasts and threw them on the ground. "Here you go, these magical beasts are yours." Looking at the monster corpse before him, the chubby young man was somewhat stunned. He hadn't expected that someone would actually be willing to sell points. After all, since the rules of the martial arts examination were established, no one had ever openly done such a thing. Even those who secretly broke the rules had long been apprehended and would probably be locked up in solitary confinement until their deaths. But Lin Lei dared to sell monster corpses right in front of Chen Pajan, and most importantly, the latter didn't even stop him. "I want 1 monster corpse. I want 3 monster corpses too. Don't fight over them, leave some for me. Hurry, it'll be too late if we don't go now." The students who hadn't yet killed any monsters were all full of energy. At this moment, they wished they could immediately hand over their money to Lin Lei. Although first-tier magical beast corpses are valuable, fanged rats are so common that even a peak first-tier fanged rat's corpse would only fetch 5,000 coins. But now, in the eyes of these students, is Lin Lei selling magical beast corpses? No, he's selling quasi-martial artist certificates, tickets to the future. Thinking about it this way, is 50,000 coins too much? It's incredibly generous. Watching the magical beast corpses being taken away one after another, Lin Lei's smile never stopped. With just the corpse of a fanged rat leader, he could reach the top. Selling all these first-tier fanged rats wouldn't hurt. "General, shouldn't you stop him?" The secretary, seeing the situation, his face was filled with shock. Although he had searched through all the regulations, he couldn't find one that prohibited the sale of monster corpses, but there was one rule that prohibited the sale of points. In other words, strong individuals deliberately team up with weak individuals for a fee to gain illicit profits. But Lin Lei's situation clearly didn't fall into either of these categories. Stop it. Is there a rule? Besides, geniuses like this aren't bound by rules. Just remember to add the rule next time. Chen Pajan didn't say anything. For him, discovering a top genius like Lin Lei was already incredibly lucky. As for rules, those are constraints for the weak. The strong can completely ignore them. With that, he turned and left, no longer paying attention to the matter. It was just letting a group of students pass the test. Although it was a major mistake, Lin Lei's talent was undeniable. Even if his superiors wanted to intervene, they would have to consider the possibility of being targeted by Lin Lei in the future. As Chen Pajan left, the hesitant students suddenly became active. Within 10 minutes, all 70-odd demonic beast corpses had been sold. With the demonic beast corpses, the students immediately took them to register for points, afraid of falling behind others. How much did you get? Chu Quang walked over, his tone still carrying a hint of lingering fear. He was genuinely worried that Lin Lei's actions would cause trouble. After all, Chen Pajan had a bad temper. If he got angry, he would risk losing his position to get Lin Lei imprisoned. However, it seems now, he had truly underestimated Lin Lei's importance to Chen Pajan. Not much, just over 3 million. Lin Lei looked at the number displayed on his mobile banking app, beaming with joy. 3 million, while not a large sum for a martial artist, was a fortune for him. After all, he had never even seen 100,000 yuan in his life. His parents needed rest, and with this much money, they could at least get some rest. Once he joined the Demon Suppression Army or went to university, he could focus on improving his strength. It is indeed a bit low. If it were me, I could triple the price. Chu Quang spoke frankly, as he saw this as many people's only chance to defy fate. Don't even mention tripling the price. Even at 300,000 for a single magical beast corpse, these students would buy it even if it meant going bankrupt for their future. Hearing this, Lin Lei couldn't help but glance at the other party in surprise. He never imagined that the seemingly honest Chu Quang would be such a shrewd businessman. However, facing Lin Lei's gaze, Chu Quang pushed up his glasses and said nonchalantly, "Researching martial artists and magical beasts is very expensive, so naturally I'll try to find ways to raise funds to support my research. But now is not the time to discuss money, Lin Lei. I need your cooperation now. I want to conduct a comprehensive examination of your physical data so I can see how you differ from other first-tier martial artists. Although I know this is offensive, for the sake of the Great Xia Kingdom, please." Having said that, Chu Quang actually bowed to Lin Lei. Seeing this, Lin Lei pursed his lips, then feigned reluctance and said, "Senior Chu, please rise, I'll cooperate with you." Although he looked somewhat embarrassed, Lin Lei was secretly overjoyed. As long as he performed well, the day when that 9th-tier magical beast would be his henchman wouldn't be far off. Seeing that Lin Lei was so sensible, Chu Quang couldn't help but show a pleasant surprise. "All right, come with me quickly." After instructing the others to help Lin Lei register his points, he grabbed Lin Lei's wrist and hurriedly led him into a room in the martial arts camp. Upon entering the room, Lin Lei was astonished by the scene inside. He hadn't expected that such a massive research institution would exist within the Abyss Rift. The interior was filled with hurried researchers, and more than a dozen imposing martial artists stood to one side, holding standard-issue weapons, their gazes fixed on Lin Lei with hostility. "Don't look where you shouldn't, follow me," Chu Quang coldly reminded him, the latter part clearly addressed to Lin Lei. Upon hearing this, the others immediately lowered their eyes, not daring to look at Lin Lei even slightly. Seeing this scene, Lin Lei finally realized just how distinguished Chu Quang was. To make a second-tier martial artist bow his head with just a few words, this was no ordinary researcher. No wonder he'll be a top expert in the future. It seems the other party has come a long way in researching martial artists and magical beasts. Lin Lei nodded silently. With such a reliable researcher, he didn't need to worry about anything going wrong. The two entered a secret room filled with various sophisticated instruments. Lin Lei was even somewhat taken aback, feeling as if he had entered some future world. "What is this?" Lin Lei looked at a robotic skeleton and couldn't help but walk over and gently touch it. However, in the next second, the robotic skeleton, which had been as still as a specimen, suddenly opened its eyes, the bright red light in its eyes carrying an extremely dangerous signal. "Data matching in progress. Contact person. Lin Lei, a student at Hejiang No. 1 Middle School, currently studying at Hejiang No. 13 Middle School. Estimated chi and blood value. 450 points, does not match the network data. Suspected spy, recommended to kill." The robot's voice made Lin Lei frown. All his data was retrieved with just a touch, and even a mismatch with the database led to him being identified as a spy. It seemed the things inside this research institute were far beyond his imagination. Even this robot was beyond his comprehension. Don't worry about it, it's just a semi-finished product. Start testing now, lie down. Chu Quang didn't blame Lin Lei. After all, the robot was just an experiment, and it would take at least a decade to stably produce a finished product. Hearing this, Lin Lei abandoned his research on the robot and walked directly to the hatch. He gave Chu Quang a deep look, then stepped inside.